pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Mr. Carson.
Here.
Mr. Sykes.
Here.
Mrs. Love. Mrs. Polakowski.
Here.
Mrs. Raymond. Here. Mrs. Rhodes. Here. Mrs. Heather Smith. Here. Mrs. Kristen Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Williams.
Here. Mrs. Love did share with us that she would not be present this evening. I'd also like to announce that we had an executive session on Monday, April 5th. And I also just wanted to share something with everyone this evening as far as our COVID numbers within the schools go. This information came from our nursing staff. In the last 14 days, known positives within the district. SPC, we have 0. The high school, there are 4. The middle school is 6. The elementary school is 11. We're still waiting on some results, but those are the known positives. If we hadn't had Easter break, we would have had to close SES and the middle school as well. Quarantined, we have 10 at SPC, 11 at the high school, 24 or 29 at the elementary school, and 32 at the middle school. Those are our quarantine numbers moving forward. Hopefully, we can get that COVID tracking chart up and running on the district site because this is becoming a much larger problem. The community spread right now in the school district is high. I couldn't get the number today, but as of Monday, that number was 137, which is higher than the county. So just something to keep in mind. Our nursing staff and Mr. Masha have been working pretty hard on, and Dr. Claire as well, on contact tracing, watching busing, films to see who's sitting by who and who needs to be quarantined. So that's all kind of been going on since Easter break. Oh, and I'm sorry, we did have an executive session this evening as well for personnel and litigation matters.
I would really like to thank the nurses, Mrs. Halligus and Mrs. Yonke. They have been invaluable in supporting us through this the number of COVID cases. Thank you very much. They've worked very, very good.
I'd also like to make a couple more comments moving into citizens' comments. Just want everybody to be mindful of speaking on agenda items at the beginning of the meeting. We cannot answer any personnel questions. And then, of course, at the end of the meeting, you're welcome to speak on things that were not on the agenda but would be coming before the board in the future. Do you have any citizen comments?
Michelle, I have a concern. On line 6 of this, it says no participant, a public speaker, may address or question board members individually. Are we honoring that?
Well, I don't think we answer individually. I mean...
Oh, wait a minute. May address or question board members individually, is what it says.
Okay.
Are we honoring that?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you.
Cole over here.
Over here, I live at 1155 Valley View Drive in Scottsdale, Pennsylvania, 15683. The 3 things I wanted to know or talk about tonight. I just feel that the board should address. There's some rumors going around through Facebook media and possibly other media platforms, just regarding some of the things that have been going on the last couple of months regarding like professional staff. And I mean, I don't know if it's anyone's concern too, but it is going around and it's getting pretty heated within the public. So I didn't know if that could be talked about in executive session or something that can be brought to the public's eye. The second thing I wanted to address, I couldn't find it. I was looking through board policy and I wanted to know what the policy was for board member attendance. I didn't know if anybody could point that out. It's something I wanted to read. And then the third thing I wanted to know is regarding, like, why do we have to write down, like, our address as far as on the paper when we want to come? Huh? Is it your turn? Okay, good. Thanks. Anyways, why do we have to write it on the form and then also announce it? Is that like for the public's, view
Mrs.
or?
Zimmerman,
that's-
we talk about this at the end.
Oh, okay.
If it's not on the agenda tonight, we shouldn't be addressing it at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, I thought you said if it's on the agenda,
If it's on the agenda, we can discuss
address it in the beginning. Oh, I'm sorry. I heard
okay.
that backwards.
If
That's
it's
my fault
not-
then. That's my fault.
And why, and I'll explain to you why it's set up that way. If we were to vote on something this evening, you need to be, as a citizen, given the opportunity to discuss that prior to our vote.
Oh, okay.
So that's the difference.
Okay.
That's why it's pre-agenda and post-agenda.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. If somebody could email me this, like, the policy thing, or just guide me whenever someone has a chance, that'd be great.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
part of state code,
Okay.
Pennsylvania state code,
Thank you.
school code,
Thank you.
sorry.
Dan Kiefer?
Hi, may I take my mask off while I'm at the microphone?
No, you may not.
Pardon me?
Mask has to stay up.
When I'm watching the trial on TV in Minneapolis, when they come in the courtroom, they take their mask
Well, I'm
off.
not in Minneapolis, I'm in Alberton.
Are you telling me that, or let me tell you, I'd like to address, in this discussion period, or in this voting session, I would like to discuss items, number 6, number 2, and number 4. My name's Jan Kiefer, 628 Homestead Avenue, Scottsdale, PA. And at your pleasure, Mr. Chairman, may I proceed? Okay, thank you. Has this microphone been cleaned lately? And what was used, because I'm sensitive to chemicals, I'm not going to come up here and French kiss after her on this. Okay, so can I just move it away and talk?
No, you cannot take your mask
Can I
down.
talk loud without the microphone? Is it coming through?
You can do whatever you want without taking your mask down.
Has it been cleaned? Is my mask fitting well? It's yours, and is everyone else's mask in here fitting well? I studied the subsection. I know statistics will show that 80% of these masks are not functioning as masks. If you understand that there's an airborne virus in here, mask, no mask, fitting, not mask, fitting, don't matter, right? So are you saying that masks are effective in preventing COVID? Because if you are, Mr. Papani will tell you, you can't say that. Okay, so we don't know if the microphone's sanitary or not. I can't take my mask off, but you can take it off in courtrooms, you can take it off other places. But you're saying you can't, Mr. Botanic will go to a statute somewhere. Those will be changed, Mr. Botanic. You can apologize for this life and probably 5 other lifetimes, but you're gonna get a law. I'm sorry for solicitor. Under the emergency use authorization, it's a federal law, and it says only the federal government can proclaim that these masks are effective against preventing COVID spread. Only the federal government can say vaccines they're experimental now. So you can't say they're good, and you can't mandate those vaccinations because they're experimental. How can you mandate masks if they are under the experimental use of the federal government? If in court's time, the legislatures will take away this power from Governor Wolf. So Southmoreland cannot threaten me, saying I cannot come in here and take my mask off and refuse me admission to this public meeting, any more than they can threaten any board member from coming in here and performing their duty as a public official. That's going to, those words will come true if you knew the law and you knew what was going on around the country on this issue. You would understand that issue. I'm sure you'd walk around that issue and you could articulate it, but we don't have a wellness committee or any forum. All we have is your Facebook page, and you have to shut off here. So the new videographer that's coming on should be able to handle those comments. So again, for teachers, board members, and public, you cannot say that it's the same to come to a virtual meeting as a real meeting. If you don't believe me, ask your students. Based on law and good science, what you're doing is unethical and illegal. It's all we got is an old statute in Pennsylvania that hasn't been tried yet and is being pushed by the apologists. Now, we know that some board members have a handicap that they have to miss board meetings and committee meetings because they cannot use the internet for this reason or that reason. You cannot say that that's separate or equal. Anymore, you can say your students who are not participating virtually are that it's their fault. There are reasons why people cannot. There are reasons why people cannot do this virtually. I can't do it. I have a great advantage of being here, and you're going to see that throughout the season, believe me. So what you're doing is a de facto mandate. You can't come to my school again because you have a mask. Next week it's going to be a vaccination. We'll have vaccination for preschool up to high school kids. You're going to say, you can stay home and study at school. Poor science, poor law, and we're going to get to you. I'm going to finish on that at the end of the meeting. But on number 2, we talked about the hazardous materials and evaluation here. When I pulled up the parking lot, I could smell the garbage dump. We've had 50 years of shit going in that garbage dump. We don't know what that is. But I know some people who have dumped there illegal. I know that we have a lot of big industry going in that dump. When's the last time you took responsibility for that? And tell me this. On the videographer, add on to his job description, he can run the comment period, or else we have a real fraud and a conflict of interest, because I'm afraid that you're going to be up here texting back to the people who are running the commentary.
Your time is up.
What?
Your time is up.
I got one more.
Any other comments?
Shall I have a point of order that I would like to discuss? And he brought it up again. It has come up twice in both the minutes and in a report from the solicitor that during our official meetings, board members are texting and making contact, technology contact with outside parties during our meeting. Is that happening? And if so, is that legal?
Who are you asking?
Is your husband allowed to email you and you're allowed to answer him during a board meeting?
Well, if my husband emails me something about my son, Catherine, I am answering him.
Well, I don't know what it's about. I'm not questioning what it's about.
I'm answering you. You wanted to know if my husband sent me a message, am I going to answer him? Yes, I'm going to answer him. I have a child with special needs at home.
I understand that.
Do I message him what's going on here? We're having a meeting and it's videoed and it's playing on YouTube. So if my husband wants to watch that meeting at home, he can certainly watch that meeting at home. This Facebook page that Mr. Kiefer speaks of, I don't run that page. My husband runs that page.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a question, though. If you are in a formal school board meeting, are there outside contacts? Can somebody literally send you a message saying, vote no on this or vote yes on this? Because I can't contact anybody outside this meeting. My concern is there outside influence that is existing during our formal board meetings?
No. I can only speak for myself, but
No.
absolutely not.
No. I need to know that, because I have been told that people are receiving messages that are related to what's going on at the meeting during the meeting. I have been told that.
And we're going to go by what everybody's been told. I think this was a discussion for back in executive.
Well, it's in the minutes.
Okay, well, your answer is no. Nobody on this board is doing that.
And I don't think anybody on this board would ever let someone tell them how to vote. Ever.
They may not tell you how to vote, but they may text and say, gee, Christy, I don't like that. And I'm not saying you're doing it, because you said you're not. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying that kind of information can come in. We live in, this is 2021.
What if they tell you to vote 5 minutes before you walk into the meeting how to vote? I mean, then what's the...
That's not during the meeting. That's not during the meeting.
I don't see a difference.
I think you can talk to anybody outside the meeting, Jason.
Exactly.
I'm only talking about outside
We're
influence.
going to move on with the agenda. This is the voting section of the meeting. Infrared roof inspection.
Please resolve that the school board approves infrared roof inspection for moisture evaluation services for SPC and authorizes the president to sign an agreement with, there must be a choice between contractor 1, contractor 2. Contractor 1, which is NDS. Below attached proposal form and board docs from NDS for infrared/FLIR imaging, which includes using an extra step of using the Troxler 3216 nuclear moisture gauge to confirm the wet areas and patching following possible core removal for $2,500, or contractor 2, Intercheck/ATI. The below attached proposal and board docs from Intercheck/ATI for infrared/impedance scanning, in which roof cores will not be taken, for $2,400 and fees for additional services if needed.
Need a motion. Can we have a little discussion before the motion, because I think the motion needs to include which one we're going with, correct?
It does, and if you look at the second page, the architecture sent an email pointing out there was only a $100 difference, but that the NDS included the extra step in testing using the Troxler TRX LER 3216 nuclear moisture gauge to confirm wet areas, and then also mentioning that potentially taking core samples during the testing. They also included patching these cores using the membrane roof system standards. This additional testing measure is also a great value for only $100 more than the Intercheck cost.
And that's AGX, is that?
No, that's the next one we're going to be dealing with. This one is between NDS and Intercheck ATI. NDS is $2,500, and that's the favorable comments that the architect was making on. Intercheck is $100 less and a little bit less in what they're covering. It's $2,400.
Mr. Petronic, wasn't NDS also taking more core samples, 72?
That's on the next one we're going to be dealing with. That's the next resolution.
I need a motion.
Oh, I had a comment, Michelle. You're discussing it?
Well, I need a motion.
Oh, I thought he waived that.
Or-
Okay, sorry about that.
I did just ask if we needed to discuss which ones.
Yeah,
which,
and I
so
wanted to
somebody can
participate
make
in that.
Make a motion, and then we can have discussion.
I'll make the motion.
Is that to go with the recommendation of Eccles, which would be NDS?
Yes.
Second.
Discussion?
Did anybody go back to Intercheck ATI and ask them to include those additional services in their bid?
I did not. The architect was handling this.
We're supposed to take the lowest responsible bidder, and I
No,
just...
this is a service. It's
Well,
not
it's a service. Okay, it's a
material.
service.
You do not have to take the lowest.
No, we don't
responsible.
have to. We don't
But
have
You
to.
can
It's
consider
what a good board does.
experience, and you can consider all these other variations in the way they're proposing to do this.
My concern is that Intercheck have the option of meeting that same standard.
I don't know what the additional services are.
There is on the second page that it's that extra testing using that Troxler 3216 moisture gauge. And
Well, okay, here's where you're going to get confused, if I may, please.
Those are additional
NDS
services
is
for
providing some
Intercheck.
extra activities,
NDS.
testing, ways of doing things that Intercheck is not, and they're charging $100 more. Intercheck also, in addition to quoting the fees, has attached a list of additional prices for additional services that could come up if required or requested. And I wanted you to be aware of that. And they are in the board docs document that it's like a page of additional pricings. So when we're talking about services, there's actually two different aspects to this.
Is it in this document here?
It should be. I have to go looking. Well, if I can get into my board docs, I can answer that question. It's up.
The Intercheck proposal would be starting on page 2, I do believe.
So, infrared roof inspection, click on that. And Intercheck moisture survey proposal, click on that. And it's on page 2 is the $2,400, and at the bottom of that page, they have a fee schedule for their various officials and engineers per hour. And then additional items on the second page, technicians, $135 per hour, project coordinator, mileage, etc. And then the contract that would be signed. The proposal from the other folks, NDS, did not do that. It's just a flat 500.
Well, those are just additional services, hourly rates.
Right.
We don't, I mean, that's not reflected in this.
What's reflected is, I wasn't going to repeat all those additional services. I gave you the
No.
basic numbers and called your attention to it. The NDS is $2,500, and then they spell out their 6 items of what it is they're doing. So, any other questions?
Is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Pike?
No.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith? Yes. Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Hazardous materials inspection.
Board is asked to make a choice between option 1, Intercheck PSI, or option 2, AGX, which is the recommended option by the architect. Board approves and authorizes the president to sign the agreement with option 1, which is Intercheck PSI. A, the below attached in board docs, request for proposal for the asbestos roof survey for the Southmoreland Primary Center, and B, the below attached in board docs proposal of Intercheck PSI for step 1 survey for 20 samples, lump sum of $1,165 plus additional surveys if needed or requested as stated therein. Step 2, abatement design, $1,250 lump sum plus the rates for additional services as stated therein if needed or requested. Step 3, monitoring and final report as per the rates set forth therein in the different phases. Or option 2, which is AGX Incorporated. A, the below attached request for proposals in board doc for asbestos roof survey for the Southmoreland Primary Center roof, and B, the below attached proposal in board doc in which AGX Incorporated will provide the services related to the scope of work, number 1, and related terms and conditions. AGX will investigate the roof system, collect and analyze a maximum of 72 bulk samples of suspect asbestos containing roofing material using PLM, screen painted surface for lead content using a portable XRF, collect a maximum of 9 confirmatory paint chip samples and prepare a report summarizing the findings for the Southmoreland Primary Center in Alberton, PA for $3,600. AGX will provide the services related to the scope of work number 2 and related terms and conditions. AGX will prepare an asbestos abatement specification for the Southmoreland Primary Center in Alberton, PA roofing replacement project for $2,000. AGX will provide the services related to the scope of work number 3 and related terms and conditions. 1 technician working 8 straight time hours, 8 air samples, 2 copies of the report, 1 mobilization, mileage, and expenses included for the Southmoreland Primary Center in Alberton, PA roofing replacement project at $475 per day, and the rates for additional services if required.
I have something for Mr. Gavin as well as a recommendation.
It's actually under the wrong number. Mr. Scheller was recommending AGX because of the larger number of samples being taken and testing being done.
Can I make a motion to go with option 2, AGX?
In a second,
I will second.
discussion.
So the difference between the first option is $2,415 versus $5,600, is that right? On the second one for AGX?
Plus the fact that the first one is for 20 samples and the second one is for 72.
That's 200 some percent higher.
For more samples, yes.
Well, that's double. I mean, it's double plus. It's
But the rate is less.
it would be 4,800 if you doubled the first
test
one.
and I don't care what you do, the test per sample, I'm just explaining, the test per sample for Intercheck is $120, and I think the test per sample, if you divide it, is $77 and change for AGX. So if you want more testing, AGX is going to provide more samples, more tests than Intercheck. If you go with Intercheck, you'll spend less money and have less samples.
Okay. It says here the board docs request for proposal for the asbestos roof survey for the Southmoreland Primary Center roof was the same information and requirements sent to both companies, because to me they don't even resemble each other. I mean, one is way different than the other. When you send out this proposal, of course I haven't seen it, what did you ask for versus what you got?
Didn't Eccles take care of that? That's
They
why we
did,
paid
I
them
didn't
to
do it.
Eccles Architect is the one that set on the proposals.
We didn't do this.
No.
Oh.
I see what Dr. Fleck's saying. I mean, do we need, how many samples do we need? I know Mark is recommending this, but, we didn't discuss it previously that we need a certain amount of samples.
Right.
And I think that's what Dr. Fleck is alluding to. And I don't know the answer to that question. How many how many do we actually need? I guess Mark is recommending that we need the 70-some one, that's what he's choosing, but I don't.
Jason, I did not know that we didn't send this out. I thought it came from us and had the same request of each.
We hired
Respondent.
Eccles to handle this for us. That's why they were sending out the proposals.
That's one thing to handle. It's another thing to make decisions in place of us.
Dr. Fleck, there is a chart. It should be in your handouts. It is entitled primary center, hazardous materials evaluation,
Yeah, I saw that.
comparison of the two.
There's also, from Eccles, their comment in board docs as to why they would go with AGX. That's listed under number, inadvertently got listed under number 1, which was for the roof inspection.
Executive content.
And you have in the documentation, the letter that went to Intercheck and the other folks, in which it does not specify a number of samples to be taken. So they have made their own proposal in that regard. That's your question.
Mr. Mesha, did you get a phone call from them asking them if they could add that, or?
I did not.
Yeah.
Is there any more discussion? Roll call.
What are you voting on, Michelle? AGX? Is that the motion?
That was the motion. That was the motion.
Dr. Fike?
No.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes? Yes. Mrs. Heather Smith?
No.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
6 yes, 2 no, and 1 absent. Motion carries.
Resignation of Mr. Alexander Novikov.
Board is asked to accept the resignation of Mr. Alexander Novikov, and I have a letter submitted by Mr. Novikov dated April 2nd, 2021. Dear Southmoreland School Directors and Superintendent, please accept this letter as formal notification of my resignation from the Southmoreland School District. Last evening, I was hired by the Central Westmoreland Career and Technological Center as the Assistant Director of Workforce Education. It was meaningful to me that I am still able to serve the Southmoreland community in my new position. It is my intention to work every remaining day as hard as I have the past 3 years. However, I do hope that my successor will be identified as soon as possible. Presently, I am involved in or the direct lead for multiple district initiatives. I look forward to working with whomever is my replacement on turning this information over. Finally, while I expect to be contractually held, I'm hopeful that the board will see to it that I am released from Southmoreland as soon as appropriately as an appropriate turnover is accomplished. I'm hopeful that I will be able to begin at CWCTC prior to the start of summer vacation. Please advise of next steps in facilitating this transition. I am grateful to the Board of Directors for the continued support and confidence in me, and I look forward to serving this community in my new capacity. Respectfully, Alexander A. Novikov.
Are we going to add a end date? Okay, so if we say May 7th, Mr. Masha, I know you said he had vacation days he wants to use after that?
He does.
So is that how the motion would be stated? He would last day May 7th and then to use his vacation days?
Plus using his accrued vacation
Approved
days.
vacation days. Okay, I'll make that motion with regrets.
Okay. Any discussion?
So to be clear then, he would still be using vacation days after May 7th.
Yes.
Is that the idea?
So technically, I think it's the May 24th would be his last official day with the district. That's what his vacation time will take him to.
And that's in hopes that we get someone to work with him to take over responsibilities for the rest of the school year, correct?
Yes.
What is the effective date of this resignation?
The date that he turned his resignation in was April 2nd,
When is his final day?
May 7th.
May 7th.
and using vacation time to take him through May 24th.
How much notice do people have to give us? 30 days.
Gave ample. He gave sufficient time for,
Okay, I don't know.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
With great regret and much gratitude, I will vote yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes, with regret.
Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Feig?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
I'd like to thank him for his dedication, special education over the last couple of years. Sorry, this is really hard for me. Brought a lot of respect back to that position in the district. You stepped up when nobody else wanted to step into this position, and I thank you for that because you have truly made a difference here. And I hope that CWCTC realizes what they're getting. And I vote yes. Thank
Motion
you.
carries. 8 yes, 1 absent.
Videographer,
board is asked to approve Gavin Zimmerman as videographer at the stipend of $1,502. The position was posted with no internal candidates applying.
I'll make the motion.
need a second.
Second.
Discussion? I have a question. Who is this person? Is this a student? Is it somebody from the community?
It's the son of one of our teachers.
Okay.
Is this just for board meetings?
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Can we ask him to start next
Next
week?
week, if I can get
Okay, all right. Roll call.
Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Feig?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries. 8 yes, 1 absent.
Middle school STEM position.
Board is asked to authorize the administration to post the position of middle school STEM teacher, which was, we accepted Mr. Sikorsky's resignation last month.
This is just internally?
This is internally, yes. We have to put it first.
Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Need a second? Discussion?
Yes, can you please tell me what this is? Because I looked at all of the teacher schedules, and STEM is on a whole bunch of them. I mean, it's scattered all along different. What exactly does this position entail in regards to STEM?
This is a middle school position. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yeah, but
And
what-
that is one of our itinerant classes at the middle school level.
Okay, is he going to teach science, technology, engineering, and math?
It's like a conglomeration of those principles. You know, I will have to say, at one point in time, there were children that had handicap. They had a handicapped hand. His class developed a robotic prosthesis for those individuals. So, I mean, there's been a lot of wonderful things that have been done in that class.
Okay. But it incorporates science, technology, engineering, and math is
Yes.
being taught by this individual.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Heather Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson? Dr. Feig?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
Mask policy.
Whereas it is necessary to follow the masking orders in the schools and venues open to the public and to protect students who must utilize school board meeting areas and staff who must clean them, be it resolved that the board authorizes and directs Southmoreland Police and Security to bar from admission to the school building anyone, including school officials and members of the public, who is not wearing a facial mask covering their nose and mouth as required by the board policy and governmental orders.
Need a motion?
I will make the motion.
Need a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, I have 2 letters that I would like to deliver to the solicitor and the board president. I would like to say to the general public, our nation is headed on the last path of democracy that there is. This motion is a clear example of what is to come in terms of communism. I believe that the day will come when if you can ever walk up to a building to come into a meeting, you will be met by an armed guard who will say, "Show me your papers, please." I think that day is coming. We are in the last leg of democracy in this country, and this is an absolute move towards depriving us of our individual rights and freedoms.
I would like to say that I think as a board, if we are going to make a policy, it doesn't have any effect unless we're willing to enforce it. There are a myriad of reasons why it's already been decided that this is our policy, and I think it is important to enforce said policy. I would also say that accommodations are available to anyone who needs them in order to comply with the policy, and if they are unable to attend, accommodations can be made. But I think if we're the board making the rules, they don't mean anything unless we actually enforce them. And if we're going to ask people to do what we think is the best thing for our students, then we need to be willing to stand behind it.
I agree.
Yes, I think also that we as a board can't say to the public or the students or anyone, do as I say, not as I do. So I think it's very important that we lead by example.
Facials covered in our policy.
I believe so, yeah.
I believe that a face shield is also an option, albeit not the best option. It is an option that we provide our students with so that they can participate in school. And I do believe we have given other avenues of ways to participate in this meeting.
I think that should be announced.
So we-
obviously you have
Yes.
participation by Zoom, which would require having access to a computer, and you could do that from home. I believe, is there an opportunity to provide a hotspot for someone who does not have?
So we have offered to
Internet
provide
availability?
MiFi's, which is a portable internet device, and we've also offered the use of a Chromebook. So we're not barring anybody from participating in this meeting by having other means to participate.
And is there a room available where a computer could be set up?
I think that we could do that in the library. However, I think that it's important that somebody wear a face mask on their way to the library because we do have children in the building. Last 2 weeks ago, whenever we came in, some students were holding the door open for us as we were coming through that were waiting to be picked up after practice of some sort. And also, there are other people in the building at the same time, so I think that's just a common courtesy. But yes, there could be access in the library, I believe, because that's an area that's easily cleaned.
What's the size, Michelle?
I'll ask that question. What is the scientific research that supports this?
I don't think we need to rehash, I mean, the policy of masks being required in the building has already been decided. That issue has been addressed several meetings ago. We're just trying to enforce it. I don't think the policy about masks needs to be rehashed. That's already been decided.
Can you answer my question, please?
There's plenty of science, Catherine. If you would like to read the science, I think you need to get on and read some medical journals. There is science out there that proves that this does work. Social distancing works.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Michelle, we're getting ready to vote on a policy here that, I don't know what you guys were handed, Dr. Fike's excluded from. She's exempt from that policy? She does not have to wear a mask in our school?
She's excluded due to HIPAA reasons that she cannot, she's unable to wear one.
Okay. Dave, is that cool? That's allowed?
Well, the provision is to provide an alternative means. I think that, the underlying problem is, I believe there was information presented that, Dr. Fike, that you were, in the courthouse and you were wearing a mask there.
Read the last line, David. Immediately following treatment.
I think that this would still allow you to be able to wear a face shield. It's not covering your mouth and
That's
your
your
nose.
opinion. That is not the opinion of the people who are in charge of my medical care. And I'm not giving any more
And
information
that's
out.
fine. Nobody is asking you to provide your medical information here, Dr. Fike.
No, and you're not getting it.
What we're asking for is if you would wear a face shield. We'll have it set up in the library for you.
Look, everybody knows this is nothing more than a personal vendetta against me. Don't waste your time. That's all this is. Everybody knows it.
What this is,
Move on.
Catherine, is
Move on, Michelle. Move on. Take the vote.
Well, Dr. Fike, why did you wear one in your house when you had Zoom meetings?
That was in my house.
Okay, she still wore one. And that's the policy here. We're saying this is our policy, she has to wear one or she can't come to the meeting.
I can wear a mask for approximately 4 to 6 minutes, as long as it does not cover my nose and mouth. Nothing that covers both.
So should we allow you to come here and the rest of us should Zoom? Would that work for you?
Michelle, it's a personal vendetta against me. Please proceed with the vote.
Catherine, there is not a personal vendetta against anyone in this room. If it was Heather, if it was Gail, if it was Jason, it would be the same thing.
And I would respect them.
Excuse me?
I would respect them.
That's fine, but we as a board would also be asking for them not to be in this room where children practice on the stage, other people touch those tables. This is the policy of the school. So you want to talk about people getting messages, people telling you what's going on during these meetings? Every day I'm receiving messages about you not following rules and why should everybody else have to follow rules? We're looking at all these cases in
They follow the
buildings
same
and-
rules I'm following. The same rules I'm following.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Heather Smith? Yes. Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
I can't vote on something that's a personal vendetta against me, so I'll have to pass.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes? Yes. Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 abstain, 1 absent.
Revised substantive motion adoption of school board meeting changes. Sorry. Advertise May 3rd, 2021 as voting budget decision-making meeting, I'm sorry.
Board is asked to authorize administration to advertise a voting/budget decision-making meeting for May 3rd, 2021, at 7 p.m., location to be determined, and the only reason location is to be determined, we're concerned about the possibility of closure due to other factors, including COVID.
I'll make the motion. I will second.
Discussion. There is a possibility that this meeting would be held via Zoom, correct? If both buildings were closed. That is in, like when we say location to be determined, that is one of the possibilities.
Well, you have also a resolution next in line to designate the middle school as the place to go and setting forth the occupancy situation there, which is not as big as this, obvious. But the continuing problem that we have is that if you have a short period of time when you find this out, you're not solving the advertising problem. You still need to advertise, and it may disrupt the date.
Is it possible to advertise that as both? The Zoom may have to be in, like, because right now I'm looking at the numbers that I gave earlier.
I know, and this is the problem that I raised whenever I
Right.
decided to come back to physical presence meetings.
I agree. So is there a way to advertise that to, I understand that people that may be coming here wouldn't know necessarily. I mean, obviously, we would post that earlier in the day, and people would know, but could we allow that meeting to start a half hour later to give people time if they wanted to make public comment?
We're treading on unknown ground, and I reminded you of the case that occurred where, they didn't follow the letter of the law, and a bill was taken, and the meeting was overturned. It was a county court case that hadn't gone to Commonwealth Court, but those are the things I'm concerned about, that literally the open meeting law requires you to advertise in advance, and we've got this problem that it takes so many days to get the ad in the newspaper because we're still living in newspaper time rather than instant electronic time. I don't have a safe answer for you. That's what I'm saying.
We're just not even really looking at good numbers for next week's meeting.
Can we say something like, we will have this meeting on whatever date this is. The location will either be the high school, middle school, or virtual, depending on current status. The decision will be made that day. The postings will be put on the door. If that's the case, that we have to change where it is, we will change the time of the meeting so that if people come here for the meeting and see the thing on the door saying the meeting was changed to whatever, they have time to get home, get on YouTube, or go to the other school.
Well, again, the problem is it has to be advertised 24 hours in advance. And there you're presenting a range of choices.
I am.
And although it sounds like for some other kind of event, a logical thing to do, but it doesn't literally comply with the statute.
Okay.
So, the other thing I'm thinking about is and we don't have it anymore, if we ever did, another room somewhere to go to that, wouldn't be in danger. And not to be facetious, but I was seriously thinking about the field house.
I was just thinking about that too, because nobody is in the field house.
But you couldn't do I've thought of that too, and that's okay until you have bad weather. I was crossing my fingers last meeting about bad weather. But you would have to then change the rules about, I don't know that you could do the videography at the field house. I don't have an answer to that.
What is the purpose of this meeting on May 3rd?
Discuss the budget.
It's a single item, the budget.
No, it's Should be for other business. Well, that was part of my concern. I was taking it to mean it could include other
Right.
business purposes.
The board is asked to authorize administration to advertise a voting/budget decision-making meeting for May 3rd. This was to give us time to discuss the budget without having a fully loaded agenda.
So it's a single item, okay.
Well,
No,
it could be other
other
items.
items in addition to that, but that's the main focus from what the president is saying.
Well, there's a meeting 10 days after that. What's the difference?
Well, I think we definitely need to have an extra budget meeting, because we haven't really talked about it.
The meeting on the 13th is the 1 week before the 20th, at which you would be voting on posting the proposed final budget. There could be, I don't know if there will be, a lot of things converging and in short juxtaposition to each other, maybe even simultaneously. The most obvious of which is that the ERIC plan deadline is May 6th, and they then become final 7 days later because of the right of rescission. So that then becomes May 13th. So you could be finding out on May 13th what numbers you have and be making decisions about whether or not they're an adequate number based on the plan, plus any other things that haven't been decided yet for other areas of cost. You're not legally required to have another meeting on May 3rd or May 6th for that matter, but
Unless I'm wrong,
previously in the
we have
general-
5 budget meetings scheduled between now and then on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. We have 5 meetings
Not before
scheduled.
the whole board.
It's not the whole board.
Well, they can all participate. There's Zoom.
And they're at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and numerous people here work. This is our meeting, Mr. Kiefer. I had a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes, if we have to, are we able to cancel same day, or do you have to give notice of cancellation?
I feel that you can, as long as, it's not a one-person, thing, but, I mean,
So
if
we,
there's a good reason for doing it.
so if, for instance, the school building's closed, we
Oh,
can
yes,
cancel it,
yes.
and
I
we
mean, you
could
can't.
probably still, we would know that day, we could probably still advertise for a meeting on the 6th.
No. If you
Not enough
find out
time.
on that, you need almost, Mr. Carter,
I thought it was 48
about
hours.
4 days. That's the problem. The lead time to get it in the paper.
About 3 days, right?
So is it possible, if we canceled it on the 3rd, to reschedule for that following week prior to our meeting on the 13th?
Plus, they don't publish on Mondays.
Christy, I didn't hear you, but did you ask why it isn't scheduled on a Thursday for the 6th? Is that what you said?
I said if we can't have it on that Monday, could we have it on the 6th?
Yeah, that
If
was
the
my...
Monday is, the building's closed.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why it was on a Monday instead of that Thursday, yeah.
Can you advertise for both and then cancel the 6th if the 3rd works out?
I'm not hearing you.
I said, can you advertise for the 3rd and the 6th as a backup date? Yeah, if the building has to be closed, then we'll have the meeting on the 6th.
I hadn't considered that. As long as that's put in the advertisement, yeah.
How and why was this date picked, May 3rd? to accommodate somebody's work schedule or something like that, is that right?
Yes, it's to accommodate my work schedule.
That's what I thought.
Is this a personal
That's what I
vendetta?
thought, that's what I thought. I think we meet on Thursdays. We meet on Thursdays. We'll waive it for you, Michelle. We'll waive it for you. We'll change everything for you.
I'm just, you know what, Catherine, I've been nothing but respectful to you.
Yeah,
I have called you when I didn't need to call you. I have tried to make arrangements for you to be able to participate whenever things have been held via Zoom. I have gone above and beyond what I need to do as a human being, and I am continually verbally attacked by you. I have not ever verbally attacked you in public. I have bit my tongue many, many times when I have watched you disrespect every single person sitting in this room.
You have treated me like a dog.
I beg to differ.
I got those phone calls from you, and I heard what you said to me.
Can I make a motion to recess for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, please?
Second.
I second.
Need a second.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
What is this?
Take him out.
Yeah, I just said that.
Recess.
We're just walking out.
Is there water anywhere then?
Any water in the building?
Jim, was this voted on? Was this voted on? This May 3rd meeting?
There is a motion and a second, and then, of course, all the discussion that took place, and no vote is taken place yet.
That's my question. There's been no vote on that, yeah. I can't keep track of it. Can't keep track of it.
motion and a second on the floor. Advertise May 3rd as a voting budget discussion making meeting.
Can I amend the motion
Yes.
to make May 6th the backup date?
If the building is closed.
If the building's closed on May 3rd, we could have the meeting on May 6th as the backup
And
date.
to advertise both.
Correct.
And I'm,
So, are you saying any particular building? or-
Well, I mean, because we're going to advertise it for the high school and the middle school, correct? Are we doing that or no? For a backup?
Well, see, that's the problem there. How many days would the building be closed if it were closed? Do we know that?
Well, I mean, it would just depend, because if your building closes on Friday, or if your building closes on Monday. So, you know, if your building doesn't close till Monday, it's probably still going to be closed on Thursday.
4 days.
Days.
I'll take one, thank you. Very much.
You know, obviously, if your building closed on Friday.
Thank you very
You
much.
have the weekend available
Appreciate it.
for you, there would be,
Thank you, Jenna.
there would be
So,
that difference.
so is the middle school going to be the alternate place for the 6th?
That's what you have for the
Thank you.
revised one, right? Is it a backup?
I mean, that's the backup plan, if that's the place to go to. And because of the short period of time, that would be the logical thing to do, but it's
If
not
those
foolproof
buildings are
because
closed,
that
we
one could be
cancel the meeting.
closed also.
Or
Yes.
through Zoom?
Right.
Well, yeah, why can't it be via Zoom?
he says we can't
The
advertise
backup
it.
is May
Why
6th
we
Zoom.
had all those days off for Easter.
I mean, that's probably the better possibility, because then it wouldn't matter.
To make the 6th the Zoom
Chances
meeting.
are good if the building's closed on the 3rd, it will still be closed on the 6th.
Right.
Chances are also good if we get to the point where buildings are closed, it will probably be multiple. So, would that be okay?
So the 6th will be if the building is closed, if this building is closed on the 3rd, then the May 6th meeting will be a virtual meeting by Zoom and by live streaming. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that second, changing my second to that.
So what you're really doing is amending your previous policy to that. Okay.
Any other discussion? So it will be May 3rd, in person here, or May 6th, Zoom, if the buildings are closed on the 3rd building. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
I could only vote for May 6th, so no.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes? Yes. Mrs. Heather Smith? Yes. Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Revised substantive motion, adoption of school board meeting changes.
Board is asked to approve the revised substantive motion, adoption of board meeting changes, school board meeting changes per the attached resolution. Under public content.
I'll make the motion.
Need a second?
I will second.
Discussion?
Michelle, we received this document in here from the Pennsylvania Department of Health. It's amending the November 23rd order. I read it several times. Where do schools fall? I didn't see schools written down here. Did I miss it? I kept reading it and couldn't find them. It's a lot about businesses and restaurants and nightclubs and sporting events.
It also uses the word venues for gatherings, which,
Well, I looked at venue. Are we a venue? Are we a host? Is that, we a venue?
when you're conducting a meeting or a activity in the evening, you are.
That's a stretch, but that's the only place I could think of that the schools are never mentioned in here. Or it doesn't even say like boards or anything like that. It just, everything seemed to be dealing with commercial stuff, which is now 75% occupancy. But apparently, we're in 25%, is that right? Because we're a venue, an event or gathering.
Right.
So we're 25%. Everybody else is 50 or 70, 75. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, I just didn't know where we fell on this document. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes, yes. Mrs. Heather Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries, 8 yes, 1 absent.
Citizens' comments?
I don't know if are they stuck for the discussion part of the agenda or what we've already done?
So any comments for the discussion part will be at the beginning of the discussion part, which is also agenda items. And this wasn't on the agenda to have a discussion period here, but we're ending our voting meeting, so I feel that we should have a discussion period if somebody has something they wish to discuss at the end of the meeting. So this would
Relative to what
be
was done.
relative to what we've done to this point.
Yeah.
And then there will be another citizen's comments at the end of the entire meeting.
And what about the 5 minutes period for the people to call in? Mrs. Heather, Mrs. Christie Smith, you were so passionate to that happened. Didn't have a break for it for the last 4 months.
We didn't have any walk-on.
That's only if we have,
It's only,
Mr. Kiefer, that's only if we have a walk-on to the agenda?
that is right, Mr. Kiefer. We have, if anybody wants to call in at any point, they can call in at any point. We have allowed people to, if we have a walk-on item, we have allowed a time period that we vote on that at the end, and people can call in to discuss that. We call for a discussion period on that one item prior to voting on it. This is different. We can carry on with our meeting. It wasn't here. I put it on so that there was not any concern that we were not following some sort of rules. There technically doesn't have to be a public comment period here. I was giving you the opportunity to speak. Any discussion? Any comments?
You know, we're talking about like the festival with that whole change thing. If we shut down, is it possible you guys could do that over like the telecommunication where you need to call the text and everything? Just something I just wanted to.
So my answer to that, and I think Mr. Masha could correct me, but robocall is only going to be for people who have students within the school district. So if a taxpayer wanted to come and discuss something, they would not get that robocall. And even as a parent, if you're not signed up for those, you're not getting them.
And then, so the second thing I wanted to ask, when you guys were talking about like a possible shutdown, would it be possible instead of going completely shut down, to go back to the AD model?
Well, so these shutdowns are shut down by the state, like your building is shut down. So I think the only way that we would go back to a hybrid model would be if we weren't in that situation already where the building was needing to close. So like if the numbers went completely through the roof here and we had to make a decision, I would hope that we wouldn't shut down completely at that point, that it would be back to some kind of a hybrid model, right? That would be our choice in substantial. But these were talks of if we had one more case in this building, if we had 4 more cases in this other building, then we would have a problem and need to shut down. Just that building.
Oh, just that particular.
Just that particular building. So like when I say, SES had 11 cases within a 14-day period, that building, if it hadn't been Easter, would have had to shut down because we had too many cases in that building itself.
And that's mandated by the state,
Yes.
not by us.
Yeah, DOH tells us that that's what we need to do whenever we're making the calls to them and doing contact tracing.
Okay, and now that's the next question is, how do you all find that information out? That is directly contact.
So no. So it is very helpful if the parents in this district are reaching out to us to tell us that they've had a positive test either in their home, because those children would need to quarantine, or that their child has actually tested positive. And then we start contact tracing because we have found that if we rely on the state to make the initial phone call, they're kind of bogged down because we don't have a county health department here. So that's been part of the problem all along. Is in the beginning, I think Mr. Masha had said we had cases that the kids were already back in school past the quarantine time before we were notified by the state. So it is helpful if parents reach out to us. We can do the proper contact tracing, watching bus runs, making sure the proper people are quarantined, because if they've been in, sat beside somebody on a bus and then been in another classroom, we were quarantining as well. It's a process.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
As we demonstrated here tonight, there is such a thing as a recess, and that recess can be used if everyone has an emergency. Emergencies aren't excluded to any one person here for any one reason. I know everyone has reasons for a recess. I went back before tonight's meeting, looked at these discussion meetings and these voting meetings. Everyone had a public comment period at the end of the discussion meeting. Let me correct you and take me off the clock on this. I know Attorney might be listening to this. When we discuss this calling policy, this period, that is not just for walk-on items. That is so people can comment at the end of the period who are opposed for whatever reason they saw. That is the citizens' last right to correct an error that you guys have made, come up at the end of the meeting before you adjourn, because you adjourn this meeting without that 5-minute comment period. If I'm sitting at home, what am I going to do? That's out of luck. Now, have you ever received, I can't address the person, has anyone on this side of the table ever received a text during this meeting and conveyed that to the board president and taken action on that, like someone calling in and saying, hey, I couldn't get in, what do I do? That happened. This is a First Amendment right of people's right to redress their government. This isn't the PTA anymore. If you want to play that PTA stuff, go back to the PTA. This is governmental. You are elected officials.
Mr. Kiefer, we're not going to address individual people. That was called out at the beginning.
I said that side of the table. That side of the table, I'll say the same thing to. That side of the table. If you're getting texts from spouses, from parents, from lifelines, you got to tell us. Or else, make the policy that we know what's going on. It's happened. Don't say it hasn't. Mr. Patonic took incoming things. That happened. It's public knowledge. What's the amplification level of the PCR test? I'll tell you. Usually 40 in America. Anything above 35 is considered BS. I read a
Mr.
story
Kiefer,
today.
those are not things that will ever come before this board to decide what PCR testing is, what the effectiveness is, we are following the guidelines that have been set forth by the PDE. That's what we're doing.
In the Reformation, they follow the guidelines of the church. In China, they take people to experiment. They follow the statutes that our legal representative here is following. That's my point. Rights, when you lock people down, it starts from the bottom, not the top. I'll take some more time then. You don't know the amplification level, but I saw a story today where bottle of Coca-Cola tested positive. We know that there's a lot of information out there on this whole testing thing. And you guys, I heard you got a school nurse. Where's she been? Let her come up here. Where's your wellness committee been? Let them come up here and talk about this thing. Give me more than 5 minutes here and there. And I'm going to wait for Mr. Platonic to rule before this meeting's adjourned on the people's right to call in. We all know the mass hazards and the studies of those, not by outcast people, but again, by some of the most credentialed, published people in the United States. It's not just outsiders attacking the system before Mr. Balkowski. It's not just people on the outside of the, taking pot shots at the system. This is the most credentialed people in the world as I get. You've got to get that point driven home. It's just a matter of censoring and suppression that they're not able to get through to the people who rely on government agencies and your television set and your censored media, or internet. Depression comes in many forms, and I'm seeing it here over and over again. And don't call me an anti-vaxxer. I think that's degrading. I want to see vaccination injury awareness. I want to know if the teachers, what their breaks were, how many got vaccinated, how many reported damage, because this is going to weigh on the students that are coming in. These innocent kids who have never had any 99.9999% chance of not being affected by COVID. You're going to sit here and smile as they're shot up this fall. I'm not going to stand here for that stuff. That's wrong. You're going to defend it. You're going to bring your nurse up here. You're going to bring your wellness committee, which is in violation, Mr. Solicitor, whoever wants to address anybody. You're in violation. That board has to meet. That is the public's pathway into the school district for situations just like this where public people don't have a friend on the board. So let's bring the nurse in. I'll wait to see how we go to agenda. We go through adjournment here, or I'll pick up my comments in a minute as we start.
Mr. Patonic, can we check that policy? Because if we're supposed to be waiting 5 minutes in the end, we've been in error, so we need to start doing that. I thought we only needed to wait, I thought the 5 minutes was only if we were walking on something to the agenda. That's what I thought too, but can we just check it to be sure?
I'm doing this from memory because, I bring stuff with me, but I didn't bring everything. The policy was that you would, if you want to sign up either at the beginning or the end to call in before the meeting starts.
Right.
And the idea for during the meeting to have a recess is because you're doing something new that wasn't already on the agenda. So my memory was that you were supposed to call in before the beginning to say if you wanted to comment at the beginning and or the end. But I'm trying to think was that January or February we did that? February.
I mean, we had a scenario a couple of meetings ago where there had been a citizen's comment for the end of the meeting, and then that citizen had decided that she didn't want to wait and said, I'm okay, I'm not going to wait to comment. Mm-hmm. She had already reached out saying she wanted to comment at the end of the meeting and then opted not to. I am positive that the waiting the 5 minutes was only when we were walking something new onto the agenda.
Oh, it's going to take me a while. I can be looking for it while you're doing everything.
I think it's the February 11th meeting, Mr. Platonic.
February 11th.
Mr. Kiefer. I don't think that's what was occurring. This is why my nurse isn't here, by the way. I wouldn't have my staff come here and be berated like this. It's bad enough we are.
Board's regular rules shall apply to physically present public speakers and the non-physically present speakers who must make advance arrangements to speak as follows. Individual telephone, by telephoning the board secretary in advance at the number during the following times on the business day before the meeting between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. or on the day of the meeting between the hours of 1 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. supplying your name, address, telephone number, and if not a Southmoreland resident or taxpayer, your basis to qualify to give public comment on board policy in which you'll be using for the meeting in order to obtain meeting ID access and information in follow 5C below and 8. So then 5C is obtain more information at school wires, and 8 is by YouTube. So I'm taking it to be to call in at the beginning.
I couldn't.
So they really should be doing this at the beginning.
Yeah, so
Right.
forward to let us know what we want to say.
Sorry.
And at any point, if something, if they could call in every meeting technically and say they wanted to speak at the end, and if nothing comes up that they want to speak on, they just don't have to wait on the line. Would be the same thing as leaving a
Can't make
public
people
meeting.
talk, no.
So, okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
That's the voting meeting.
That's the voting meeting is
To go
being
to the-
adjourned.
yeah.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
You going to shut off the microphones?
What's that? They're on, we're going back into another meeting.
Don't they go off if you're adjourning?
We're going
No, we're
into
going
another
into
meeting.
to the
What?
planning meeting.
We're going into the discussion meeting, that was the voting meeting.
We finished the voting meeting.
There's no time in between. You're going from one to the other.
Did you need time for something else?
Okay.
Do we need to take a 5-minute recess?
5 minutes? We can take a recess in between, and I'll just come back and then call the meeting to order.
Let's take a 5-minute recess. Do we need one or no?
Say the Keystone Cops.
Nope.
Apparently not.
Do we need a recess?
Jim, do you remember the Keystone Cops?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, let's go.
So, we're moving into the discussion meeting. Roll call.
Mr. Carson?
Here.
Dr. Pike?
Here.
Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Raymond?
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes? Mrs. Heather Smith? Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Here.
Mrs. Williams?
Here. Citizens' comments?
Michelle, I have a question. How many meetings can a school board member miss before there's anything?
We're in citizens' comments.
Well,
I have Mr. Kiefer.
oh, go ahead, Jan. Go ahead, Jan. I'm just questioning the roll call.
Well, I'd love to have Mrs. Love's seat if that isn't too obvious, and, I just can't understand how that's going down like it is. Good evening, my name's Jan Kiefer, I'm at 628 Homestead Avenue, I'm a taxpayer and resident. I'd like to address, on this meeting, the LERTA issue, and that would be under old business number 2. Under new business would be, I'd like to address number 2 and number 4. And in personnel, I'd like to address number 2 and 4. And at the end, I'll tell you why you're wrong, Mr. Person who does legal work. I'm alerted. I might be out of order here. You remember Walmart was alerted, right? That was a great thing for us. Now, I want you to work with these people in Scottsdale. I think their ideas are right with 2 stipulations. I want you to tell them we're not going to give it to some multinational corporation who is not producing a product that's, or who's producing a stupid product. You know, if it goes to some mom and pop and you help the town with the tax abatement, that's good. And the second one, and I don't want you to do business with these people until they lift their curfew on you. These guys pride themselves on anti-lockdown stuff and the fines and this and that. You sit there while we have a lockdown on your youth so they can't walk the streets freely after dark. Come on. Are you for the lockdowns or are you against them? Are you going to pick out the youth and lock them down? Let's pick out some other demographic. So don't play ball until you get something back from them that's valuable. I want you to work with them. I think it's a good idea. All right. Boy, I wish I had my flashlight. The coordinator for the police force. If you go into that, that would be number 3 under new business, the coordinator. And item number 2 for that person, he is supposed to provide and be a insights into the, I'm reading directly from board, insights to give the board this liaison for your police force. He's going to liaison with you with federal laws, right? That's in your print there that I looked up before the meeting. Federal laws. So let's talk federal laws next time we come to this meeting, because I'm going to talk federal laws. I don't care about what you guys want to do. You guys want to make a policy and make us follow it. It doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't kindergarten. This is America, and we have constitutional rights, right? We keep forgetting that. This is serious stuff. You're elected officials. And you're affecting the lives of children with your lockdowns in a horrible way. And then the new business number 4, which would be the policy of electronic communications. Well, just put your communications up where we can't see them. That's the only way I'm going to trust you. Or else say, hey, we're going to communicate out. We can't have it both ways. Mr. Patani is having it both ways. Another member, I'm not going to say which side of the room, that gender-neutral person is having it both ways and seem to forget about it. All right, so we just want to know who, I'm seriously now, I'm President Friendly, I just want to know who I'm listening to when I hear you guys talk. I don't want to be hearing somebody else. On the boys soccer coach, I want him to tell you when you're interviewing him what his information is on head injury. Okay, if he can talk around it, he talks intelligently, and he can say what the pros and cons are, what Mike Webster's story was all about, what the court cases are all about, then let's hire him. If you want to just blow off the head injury stuff, you want to lock the kids out, you want to give them vaccinations, you're going to hear why I'm out forever. But I'm not going to piss around with your social media. I think I better stop there because I'm a little lost and I don't want to get off the agenda. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Was there something that you had, Dr. Pike?
My question was, how many meetings does a board member miss before there's a concern?
2 regularly scheduled voting meetings, and then notifying them if they have a legitimate excuse. So it's not every meeting, it's 2 regularly scheduled, which would relate back to the beginning of the year when they were regularly scheduled.
The reason I ask is I know that we had a board member in the past who didn't come to meetings for like 6 months, and finally something was done. And I didn't know, again, what the
Well,
law
somebody has
is.
to bring it up. I mean, someone still has to bring it up.
I think all of us should have that concern. I know there are good reasons to miss meetings, but there comes a point where we're running an eight-person board.
Is that all, Dr. Fike? Is that all you have, Dr. Fike?
On that subject, yes.
Minutes of the following board meeting.
Board will be asked to consider the approval of the minutes of the virtual voting meeting of February 18th, 2021, minutes of the special voting discussion meeting held in person on March 11th, 2021, and minutes of the voting meeting of March 18th, 2021.
Need a motion?
No, this is just discussion.
I'm sorry. 2021 general fund check listing.
Board will be asked to consider the approval of the March 2021 general fund checklist.
Is there any discussion? 2021 treasurer's report.
The board will be asked to consider the approval of the February 2021 treasurer's report.
Is there any discussion? Superintendent information.
I just have one item. I will be presenting the findings of the meetings held concerning potential suspension of employees due to economic factors at the April 15th board meeting.
All you have.
That is.
Business manager.
I sent the school board and superintendent and solicitors information recently regarding items of the budget. And I know we're going to have a special budget session and a Zoom meeting on Tuesday afternoon. So I will certainly consider any thoughts and questions regarding those communications.
Is that all you have?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Solicitor information.
No further information beyond what I've already presented for those other resolutions.
Budget update.
I sent a budget update to the school board, superintendent, and solicitor last week on the 31st. A spreadsheet listing items that were approved to be changed and the status of our projected budgetary deficit for next year's budget is right now at $385,000, but there's many items that are still outstanding and need to be determined. And I listed those both on the one-page summary form, and then I also continue listing them in the email that each member got. So we got significant items that are outstanding. I mean, nothing less than top item concern for all of us is when and if the Commonwealth will approve a state budget for next year, and effects on federal grants. We got significant expenditure discussions that are taking place regarding the two new extended federal grants called ESSERS 2 and ESSERS 3. That's over $4.7 million, and other items that are listed. So we still have lots to talk about at our meeting on Tuesday at 1:00, and ongoing. We need to keep discussing these and continue our planning for next year's budget.
Is that all you have, Mr. Marno?
That's it for now, yes.
Can I ask a question? So you emailed us a comparison from this time last year to this current time.
Yes.
And you had made kind of prediction. Now, is that prediction based on the fact that we had a surplus at the end of last year, or is the prediction just that we'll break even?
And that's part of it, yes. What we did last June was we took a worst-case scenario that was presented to all the school systems in the Commonwealth regarding effects on local revenues. And each school district was given a forecast by PASBO, PASA, and PSBA on potential effects on local revenues. There was one scenario, and then there was a worst case scenario, and we went with the worst case scenario to be safe. Part of that worst case scenario was actually in local revenues for last year. If you looked at the audit report, we did come up short in some of the local revenue categories because the pandemic hit and the country was shut down, and there was an economic effects to that. And of course, it continued into, for us, our new fiscal year and for all school systems. But based on this comparison, looking at where we are at the end of March 31st this year, comparing it to March 31st last year, and I know it's very hard to make comparisons because we're no longer comparing, two normal school years, because we're not in normal anymore, and hopefully we will get back to normal. We were shut down basically for the last quarter of last year. Starting March 16th, school was closed, and it stayed closed. We opened up under a hybrid model, and then we had some shutdowns until we reopened again on March 22nd. So again, it's hard to make comparisons, but it's what we got. So looking at these two comparisons and factoring out, as I stated in my memorandum, factoring out expenditures this year using the first CARES Act funding and factoring out the money received for the CARES Act funding, we're running ahead of where we were last year, which is good. That's good news. So I'm feeling much better. When we rolled out the first draft of the budget in January, I was forecasting a deficit this year of $608,000. Now I've revised that to, I feel very confident that we could have at least a break-even budget between revenues and expenses. And I'm hoping above all hopes that things continue to improve economically for all of us, and that maybe we could even see a surplus like we did last year. Now, last year's surplus wasn't planned, and it came about under the most unnormal circumstances that I've ever witnessed in this business. So, but yeah, I think we have some room to breathe now, and continue to plan our budget for next year.
Does the break even still mean we will be taking $800,000 from the general fund?
Well, the break even means we're not going to be taking $827,000 out of the
okay. I just didn't know if you meant.
The break even means we will preserve that level of fund balance as of the end of last school year. So, which is good, and we want to continue that kind of trend. Again, last year was an aberration. This year's an aberration. So it's hard to make comparables, but it's this is what we got as far as making comparison. But it's also looking at the revenues that have been coming in, and they've been stronger than that forecast. So again, the best minds in the Commonwealth got together and did two scenarios for all of us. And again, we took the worst case scenario to protect ourselves and the organization, so that we wouldn't be surprised. Last year we could have passed the budget without considering those scenarios, and perhaps in hindsight now, we probably could have done that. And maybe some of us even thought that that might occur, but we didn't know. Again, who can tell what's going to happen tomorrow or next year? So I'm feeling much better about our operations this year on a revenue and expenditure basis. I'm not speaking about the effects that it's had on our kids and on our communities. Again, this is just strictly financial feelings. So I would like to retire with our school district, if not break even, at least having another potential ending surplus and add some money back to the fund balance. So again, this isn't an ego thing. It just would give me comfort going out that the school district has a healthy fund balance, that the school district is on the right path, continues to be fiscally prudent in its decision making, and we continue to work through this terrible situation, and the school system and the kids and the families get back to what we all thought was normal, a better normal, let's say. I know we have lots to talk about at our Zoom meeting, and we're going to continue that every week. And then, of course, we have a potential possible meeting on May 3rd. So a lot of important decisions still need to be made. More information still needs to come to light. Our health consortium possibly at this meeting this month will set our rate increase. I believe I have a substantial enough booked into our potential health insurance to cover that. I think I've got almost maybe a little over 10%. So I know generally speaking they talk about capping it on or around 6%, but that's for the whole consortium, not for each individual plan. Because last year our plan received a higher rate increase than other plans, but again, they were speaking in broad strategic terms. And of course, we've got the state budget. We still have to look at our regular federal grants. So there's a lot here, and a lot of work still needs to be done, especially in planning for how to appropriately spend that CARES money. So.
Okay. Can I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
With all due respect, I really, really appreciate what you're doing, but I do speak for the taxpayers.
Yes, ma'am.
This budget has in it the maximum allowable tax increase. Maximum allowable tax increase in order for that scenario to work out. And once again, I think we need to really think long and hard about our taxpayers, what we're expecting from them, what they're getting for their money. And according to what I can see happening, this kind of a tax increase is going to happen every year for probably the next 6, 8, 10 years. I don't see any other way around it. I think we have not really, we didn't bite the bullet. We have not dealt with the elephants in the room. But again, this budget does represent the maximum allowable tax increase under Act 1.
That's correct. That's what we started out our planning in January. We made a decision to stay within the index, and our potential new tax rates are just slightly below that maximum allowable as calculated by the Commonwealth. Just slightly below that. So yes. Again, the final decision rests with the board, and if our financial scenarios continue to improve, and we find items within our expenditure budget that can be utilized by using the new CARES funding, like we did with a number of items already, it's possible we could even reduce that millage impact.
Dude, we've gotten huge amounts of money from the government, huge amounts. And I know they're earmarked monies, but they're things we don't have to pay for out of our regular budget, even though they are earmarked, right?
Well, I think that is the strategy, to find as much as possible that's in this existing budget that the ESSER's funds can be used for, legally used for. And of course, there's also the intent that portions of that money has to go towards addressing a learning loss by the kids. And as a parent, I don't have primary or secondary age kids anymore, but as a parent, you have to worry about learning loss of your kids, and that money has to be, some of that money has to be geared towards that, among other items.
Yes.
So yes,
Jim,
you have a very good committee. I'm part of that committee. Good discussions are taking place on, and how to utilize that money, and I think that's a proper approach.
Jim, I saw somewhere we have the dates for the testing that's going to occur. Mr. Masher, do you know if we're going to get those test results quickly so that we know what we need to do to help our kids?
I would hope that they would be before the end of the summer.
I would hope so, because if some of this money is for remediation, we have to have some ballpark figures at least to work from to look at our areas to see where our curriculum needs to be improved and what instructional supports we need.
We need that information for our comprehensive planning process also.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the budget? Further discussion?
I do believe that Mrs. Smith has a presentation, or at least some information to provide us concerning a possible order between Scottsdale Borough and the Southmoreland School District.
Yeah, I just have some more information. At our last meeting, I was asked to speak with the Borough Council representative, Clarity Coleman, and she gave me some more information, which I sent to you all, and I think, Dr. Fike, you have it in print. Basically, what they're looking to do is partner with us, obviously, because we would have to give approval for this. You could pick whatever year plan you would like to do. The school district can pick that. It's not set to be 10 years. It would have to be enough to make it worth it for the business to come in. Ultimately, my understanding is that we would not lose any tax money that we're getting right now. It would be on, for example, if a business that's currently in a storefront would like to do a remodel or an upgrade or a renovation, they would still pay the taxes that they're paying right now, but when they're reassessed, they would save on that reassessment over this whatever year plan we would pay. So they'd still pay their base taxes. We're not wiping those away. The same thing would happen if someone comes in and buys an empty storefront. They would pay whatever the assessed value of the storefront is. If they choose to upgrade, remodel, do new construction, that's where they would see the savings over whatever type of plan we would choose, either 5, 6, 7, whatever we would want to do. There's a couple proposals that their solicitor, the borough solicitor, suggested was either a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan. Most of them, both of these allow for 100% exemption for the first 2 years so that they can kind of work their way up, and then the last year would obviously be, they'd be paying their full assessment. I asked for how many properties are currently vacant, and they sent us those addresses. Some of them are vacant, some of them are going to be empty in the near future. So we have those as well. If there's any questions that we have for them, I can take those down and send them and have them for next week's meeting, if anybody has questions about it. I talked to Mr. Pallone today too, and we verified all of this just to make sure we wouldn't be losing any tax money, which we won't be. There are a couple businesses who might, if they buy the business, might want to have forgiven the back taxes. So that's, I believe that's a separate issue. It doesn't have anything to do with this 5-year plan. I think that would be a separate agreement. But if there are discussion questions that I don't know the answer to, we can take them to them, and they would also, I'm sure, come to our meeting next week and answer any further questions.
I know it's not necessarily planned, but in the event that an owner were to demolish a building, in that case, only once they put up a new structure and they start the new period running, would there be a building, and it would be, subject to that phase-in. But it would seem that in that situation, as it would with any situation, if you demolish a building and timely notify the officials, which sometimes doesn't happen, by the way, with especially residential folks, but I mean, that theoretically could result in a so-called tax loss for the period of time that it takes for them to get around to putting up a new structure. Now, I know there was information presented at the last meeting that the building inhabited by the Eagles is sort of a different situation.
That's my understanding.
That is likely to what would happen with that. I don't, and I read your email rather hurriedly, but I guess there's no way of guaranteeing one way or the other whether or not either existing owner and prospective new owner is going to just expand or just renovate, or maybe decide, this isn't so good, I need to tear it down and start over.
Yeah, I don't
I'm just
know.
pointing that out, and I don't know if there's any other comment about that from them that would have any, ongoing relevance to it.
I'm not sure, I can ask that. I know that some of these buildings listed, there's not taxes being paid, even though their back taxes due. So we're not getting the taxes on them, even though they're owned by someone. So I can ask that question about the demolishing a business. I'm not sure if you can stop somebody from doing that.
Well, no, that's not, I'm not saying
I mean, as part of this agreement.
Are these all residential, Christie?
They're all commercial.
They have to be commercial.
They have to be commercial?
Yes.
What's the, I think I asked this last time when they were here, like currently vacant. How long do they have to be vacant? Like if you,
I don't know. I know that there's a huge thing that the borough has to go through to consider a building vacated,
Okay.
and they can condemn them, I think. But I think that's a huge process. And I don't know anything about that.
And these wouldn't all necessarily be vacant properties.
No.
It would be if somebody owned the property, decided to sell it to somebody else,
Mhm.
and then they made improvements,
Yeah.
they would still be included in
Right,
this.
and current business owners as well can take advantage of this. If they want to do something to their business to upgrade it, it has to be, there's very specific, in the attachment, it's very specific as to what is considered an upgrade or a renovation, I guess you could call it.
I'm sorry, I thought that vacancy was their way of defining what deteriorated area was.
Now, if you read the attachment that's on here, that's part of the questions I had too, because I thought that, but if you scroll down
Where are you? I'm sorry.
in the email,
Oh, I don't,
that
with me, I'm sorry.
I sent it.
You sent it to me, but I don't
Okay.
have it with me. It's not in
There are different definitions of things, and it appears that someone can already be in that building and decide to do a renovation, and they could apply for this alert. That's what I was concerned about. I didn't want someone that's already in there to all of a sudden they're not paying any taxes, because that would obviously harm us, and that's not what would happen. It would just be that assessment, the extra assessment that would be
Can I answer
discounted.
this question because I didn't understand it either? The borough is legally obligated to notify the courthouse if you have done improvements, which you have to have permits. So the borough would know those were done, they have to be inspected, and then they have to notify the courthouse. So that's how they would come out to a commercial property and reassess.
Okay.
Christy, I have a question. We have had this experience with the industrial park for years. So if somebody comes in, they get their taxes waived, and they get down around year 6, 7, 8, they don't want to be here anymore, can they just walk away and just leave it vacant again?
I think that's part of the problem, except that they would have had to have done some sort of upgrade to it.
Well, yeah,
So they might be
can't,
leaving it
yeah.
better than when they came in. I think that's the only advantage we get out of that.
Right, but we have had repeated happenings, and
Yeah.
I think that's where the skepticism comes in, where people come in and want to take advantage of years for 1 through 7, and then I'm out of here, that kind of thing.
And this is just for the borough. This isn't this doesn't apply to East Huntington.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but it's the same principle. I'm just
Yes.
talking about the principle of it.
Yes.
It's tax
a little
forgiveness
different,
for, it's tax forgiveness for the, not for the property, it's for the addition to the
For
property.
the addition, yes.
It's not for the property itself already.
The
It's
real
for,
estate.
Yeah, they would still have to
for the
pay whatever the
upgrades.
base assessment was when they bought it.
Will you upgrade?
So if the base assessment was, say, $10,000 a year, they would have to pay that. Now, after they do the upgrade, their property taxes go up to $20,000 a year. That $10,000 is what they would get the discount on over those 5 years. So they'd still have to pay the normal, I'll call it normal taxes.
Does somebody come in here and tell them what they have to do to this property?
No, I don't believe so. I think there's a lot of definitions as to what an upgrade, what qualifies for an upgrade. But we can get the solicitor from the borough to come in again to the next meeting, and I'll kind of send some of these things we've been talking about so he's prepared. But if there's other questions, then they can answer that too.
It's not really an incentive to purchase a vacant property. It's an incentive to purchase that property and make it better than it was. If you don't do any improvement,
You don't get any
you don't get
discount.
any incentive.
Correct.
Right. So
And somebody quantifies that improvement.
I think
when it gets reassessed.
it's when it's reassessed that improvement's quantified. They could think I guess they could think that they upgraded and made their assessment better, and then maybe they didn't. I don't know. But then they wouldn't have to pay those extra taxes anyway because they didn't make it better.
It will get a new assessment, and the assessment will be marked as being an alerta, so that that portion of it is subject to whatever the percentage is.
I think that for the community, it would be a win-win. We're not going to lose any taxes. There's always, like Dr. Feck said, there's always that possibility that they could come in for the discounted amount of time and then hit the road. That could definitely happen. But I think we would still be getting the taxes we were already getting. And some of those, like I said, we're not getting any taxes. So if we get anybody to move in there and start paying any type of taxes, that would be more than we were making before.
But this is only for commercial.
Correct.
So if somebody moves into Scottdale and puts a lot of money into their home, they don't get any tax breaks on that.
No, this is only for commercial.
Correct.
That's what I thought it was for residential too. When they spoke, I didn't know there was a difference.
Well, I asked if it's only commercial, and
Okay.
that's what they said.
Yeah,
I can definitely verify that.
That's right.
And I believe that what they
That's right,
sent
I
us
know,
was
very
just commercial businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they say what's going on with Central Grade? Is there anybody in there?
I don't have any, I didn't ask about specific businesses.
I don't know where I saw that. I thought there was somebody using that.
There's a daycare in the bottom, in the basement.
Daycare?
For a while, but whether it's still there or not, I can't tell you.
Is anybody,
So would you like me to ask them to come back again next week to answer some more questions? Or would you like to, I'm sure we can send them questions and he can send them to Mr. Patonic, the answers.
I think I'm good. I don't need them to come back unless somebody else,
No.
Dave's going to be in
It's a
contact
win-win
with
for
them.
us.
I trust
No,
Dave.
no,
Okay.
no.
So the other thing we would have to discuss if we want to move forward with this is what year plan would we want to do for that? Would we want it to be a 5-year plan or a 6-year plan? Or 7 or 8, whatever.
are these the two options that the borough is leaning?
Those are the two options that their solicitor suggested, but it's definitely not what we have to go through if someone else wants to do something different. They did say, though, that typically the first 2 years would be 100% forgiveness, just to give the business time to make up that cost of upgrading.
I personally don't have a real preference between 5 or 6 years, but I don't see going beyond that.
I agree.
I think that those need to be the limits. I wouldn't want to go any longer than that.
Anybody else have any thoughts on the term?
No, whatever Dave or if Mr. Marnell has an opinion on it, I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
I think it would probably be a good idea for the sake of understanding if the borough and the school district had the same time period.
Oh, yeah, we have to agree on a time frame with
I
that.
thought so.
Yeah.
And do they have a preference?
Well, they just said, the two they offered samples were a 5-year or 6-year, so I'm assuming that that's their preference. They would choose a 5 or 6 year.
Okay.
Because I think their last one was a 10-year, and that was a bit long.
Right.
I mean, unless I'm looking at this completely wrong, if a few organizations come in here and spend $500,000 on renovating buildings in Scottsdale, what does that generate in tax dollars, Jim? It's not a huge amount of money, right? If you broke that down into 10 properties, they all spent $50,000. It's not going to generate a ton of money for us, just on the assessed value. I mean, a couple $1,000, it's not much, right? That we're going to waive for 5 or 6 years?
What's the number?
$500,000. Say someone come in here and spend $500,000 in renovating.
500,000.
Then that wouldn't be your assessed value, right? That would be
No, that's what I'm going to try to estimate.
Yes, what you buy a house for, I'm just going to use personal, you buy a house for $100,000, but its assessed value is $30,000. So until the county goes through a reassessment, you inherit the assessed value that you purchased that house for. So it's not based on the sales price.
What's our millage? What's our millage currently, Jim?
We're at the, 83.05 in Scottsdale Borough.
So as a decimal, that'll be .083.
Yes.
All right, this is really rough. If you did $500,000 worth of improvements and the county thought that generated, which it might not, $500,000 of fair market value increase. You usually don't get dollar for dollar,
Right.
for the sake of simplicity. And the county level ratio is, I don't have it memorized, but we're down to about 0.16 something. So 0.16 times that is 83,000. So 83,000 times 0.083 is $2,500. $2,490.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to see someone come in and spend $500,000 in renovating Scottsdale.
I think you have to look beyond, the property tax value of it.
Right.
It's the improvement to the community.
Right.
Potential for employment of individuals, so it has a greater economic effect, a multiplier than
I
just.
made a mistake, it's 6889. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
In return, you're getting nothing on it now, property tax wise. Neither is the borough or the county. So.
And that was the biggest thing I wanted to make sure, is that we weren't going to be losing anything. And unless, like Mr. Plenick said, unless somebody comes in and demolishes businesses, I don't. There's a possibility for anything, I guess, but.
I'm going to send information to Mr. Petonic on the deed transfer list we got from the county. There was a big property tax sale, and we think it might be the Kmart, the old Kmart property, $6.5 million purchase by
County mortgage.
a development company, and that generated a nice real estate tax. But that might be something that might generate a reassessment up there. I don't know, but it just came in today, and I asked Mrs. Lang to make a copy of
Well, I
both.
thought that may have been county market, but you may be right, because I had heard something about.
I'm not sure, because I was busy with other things, and I told her, I said, make a copy of that page of the real estate transfer listing and a copy of that property from our tax duplicate book, so then we could talk about exactly what property. I was thinking the old Kmart property, but you could be right too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we need a tax map number or something to
Yes,
identify
yes.
it.
It has the tax map number on it.
Okay.
So are there any specific questions that we should send to them in preparation to vote next week? Or does anyone want them to come in and speak again?
Well, we do need to straighten up the resolution and make sure we're using the same definitions. And I'm still a little bit worried about, I know the statutory definition, but the way it was explained, he kept using the word vacant, and the statute's talking about vacated by public order, or condemnation, or demolished.
And then if you read further down in that, there's also a section that says improvements that were done and what improvements are defined as.
Yeah.
So it does that, and that's why I ended up talking to them again today, because I got a little confused about some of the things. But I actually don't even know what the next step is. I don't know if you meet with them and draft a resolution, or if we discuss as a board, would like to see a 5-year resolution, and then you draft that with the borough. I know that they said that they probably could draft it too. Whatever.
I think it'd probably be better to exchange some more information this month and be ready in May, rather than make a misstep at this point.
Christy, there are two different charts in these documents we got. One shows 100% deduction for 2 years, and one shows 100% deduction for 1 year. Is that just because it's a sample from Unity Township? It's just a sample. But the one they're asking us for is 2 years at 100%.
It was, yeah, the first 2 years were 100%, and then for the 5-year one, it went, I think,
Yeah. But Latrobe went with 1.
33%, 66, and then for the other one, it was 75, 50, 25.
Is there any other discussion?
So, Mr. Botonic, you're suggesting we wait until May?
I didn't understand you.
I think, I said,
I do.
Mr.
because,
Botonic
you know, part of the
suggested.
reason is we've got a lot of other things going on too, and I'm just worried about.
I do think that time is of the essence a bit, because there are some people looking to,
I understand that. yeah.
okay.
And we try to maybe
Let me mention something. I didn't mean to be obscure. I'm trying to schedule an information session with East Huntington Township for members of the board and officials to attend with East Huntington Township and Mr. Gavin from Westmoreland County Economic Development. And I forget the acronym. He spoke to us before about the KOEZ zone. There is interest in another property being further developed, dependent upon Alerta, and potentially being a larger transaction, but I don't have much else in the way of information. That's the purpose of trying to schedule a meeting. So I don't know if there's a desirability or not to try to maintain uniformity, and maybe that's not even possible with the schedules that would be adopted both by, you know, this plan that we've been talking about tonight for Scottsdale Borough and that one. The other thing I don't know yet is, and you haven't even had the discussion about the paraprofessional situation, and whether that's going to translate into having to fine-tune contracts for that, or if you're going to go internally and not do that. So, you know, there's a bunch of different things here that are happening that can start chewing up a lot of time.
Okay.
So, in that regard. If anybody has any suggestions about good or bad times over the next 2 weeks or so, please send me an email tonight or first thing in the morning.
Any what?
Good or bad times
For what?
for an information session with East Huntington Township.
Okay.
Can we, with this particular issue, is it possible for us to, if we can't get it on the agenda for next Thursday, to vote possibly that budget meeting?
Well, I was thinking of that. That's another potential fallback, you know.
Is there any other discussion on that? On the LERTA? Contract for paraprofessionals.
I would ask Mr. Novikov, who's been working diligently on this, to come forth and send some information.
Can you hear me? Is this on?
Yeah, I think it's on. It's just not very loud.
Okay. Thank you. We had, I'm going to do with this. We had 4 proposals that came in. 2 of them, though, did not come in by the actual stated proposal deadline. So there were actually only 2 proposals that were shared with you that we actually were able to consider. One proposal from a company in Florida, the rates were significantly higher than what we paid previously, significantly higher than what ESS was. I think that was shared with you. But the other consideration then was ESS. So we're back to kind of where I think I projected we'd be in March, which is back to ESS. So Ms. Botonic shared with you the Exhibit A, the ESS proposal. Frankly, it's the same proposal that they're currently doing. ESS has offered what they're calling a reduction rate in 21-22 to $16.50. That's what we currently pay. So it was scheduled to go up 3%, and this reduction is back to what we were already paying. So similar, if I call Comcast and threaten to cancel my cable, I probably can get the rate that I was going to have previously. However, in my calculations I shared with you, I did it off that $17 per hour. So it would appear that my calculations were overinflated. However, we asked for 5 paid time off days. ESS did not include that in their proposal. What they told us was that, sure, you can pay them 5 paid time off days, and that's fine. So basically, we would get billed a whole day and have to pay ESS $16.50 over 7 hours for someone to take a paid time off day. When you add that back in, it's right back to where the 3% increase was. So the numbers that we looked at last month, pretty much the same. That's what ESS's offer is. It's the same offer. They did not take an option to offer any kind of different behavioral support agreement. They did not. They did do the para, but that's what we already have with them, the agreement. So essentially, ESS's proposed offer is exactly what we have today, with the option for us to pay them to give people time off as well. That was ESS's offer, and that was the best offer that we received from our request for proposals. And given that being a fact, I hope it's okay with the board. I made the decision that it was kind of redundant to ask them to come in here and put on a sales pitch for a company I think we feel we do know. So I'm certain you can request that again, but the numbers are exactly pretty much what we had the last 2 years under the same terms. And again, the paid time off days would just be billed to us. We would just pay them, and then after 5 days, they said, fine, we won't pay them. And when you calculate that in, it offsets that decrease rate. So I guess long summary short, it's what we have right now.
With the difference being that we would have the right.
Yeah, we'd be allowed to pay
pairs, which they can't fill it.
I'm going to be honest, I don't see why we'd probably be able to do that now. I'm sure they wouldn't be mad if we paid them for nothing. So, I mean, I don't see, I mean, yeah, you're right. They just specified that we could pay the paras for the paid time off days. But again, I don't.
No, I was talking about if we can't fill a position, if they can't fill a position,
Yeah,
in the specs is the requirement that after, I forget what the time period is, 21 days?
yeah,
We would have the right to go and fill it ourselves, but in that event, that would become our employee. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit different over what the situation is now.
yeah, previously, yeah. But I'm sorry, I was talking about money, I didn't hear you were talking about the days, you're right. So is there, want to follow up with recommendations?
Yes.
I recommend we hire Paris back at the rate $16,200 over 185 days. That's $12.50 an hour. 5 paid time off days is factored in. That's based off of numbers provided by our healthcare brokers to be in line with the Affordable Care Act that we could offer. It would allow Paris to be back in Peasers. It would allow Paris to be on a salary structured schedule with predictable pays over 26 pay cycles. It would, frankly, I think be the best option. I think that we're in a good situation to do that. The challenges, Affordable Care Act minimum requirements could change. That could go up. Peasers rates are based off right now, not based off a couple years from now. Obviously, we'd have the human resource side that we have to take into account, but 2 years ago, when we still employed them, we haven't added or lost any administrators, so it's the same people here, and half of the pairs we have working for us now were working for us 2 years ago. So that would be my recommendation. And
How many?
20. This was all based off, the numbers were based off 20.
Okay.
Right now, though, because you never can predict, with early intervention coming up, I don't know, 19 is what I think next year will be. I ran the numbers off 20 because it was a nice round number, but 19, that would be what we probably would go in to continue with 19. And it would be the paraprofessionals for this summer as well, but that would be at a supplemental rate for any of that kind of work, would be like a teacher getting paid curriculum rate for working after school.
When would they be paid for that extra work in the summer? Would it be immediately and not spread over a period of time?
No, I think it's, I know payroll for like teachers and curriculum rate pay, we get paid on a normal pay cycle, it'd be an additional amount of money that we get paid on that. But it has to go through the submission process to a supervisor, to then the superintendent, and then it goes to the business office. So then it's when they process that timeline, which to be honest, often gets held up by someone like me, not the business office. It's usually making sure you get the supervisor's signature on it, and then the business office runs it within the pay cycle. Yes, Dr. White.
There's a colorful sports figure who said this is deja vu all over again. I sat through 2 sad years, not as a board member, as a member of the audience, and I watched the weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth of those paraprofessionals when they begged for their jobs, and then they got them, and then they lost their jobs again. I'm very concerned that if we're going to make a solid commitment, we owe those people something after what they've been through. A lot of people wanted to keep those aides. Good bit of the people on the board now did not want them. They did not want them. They were going to save money. And we were concerned again about quality. It was a quality issue back then. And I still think it's a quality issue now. But if we're going to rehire those people, and I've read your proposal very carefully, very, very carefully. And as far as some of the concerns go, I don't think you're going to escape those concerns anywhere. I think there's always going to be concerns regardless of who you have. But I think if we hire them back, we should do the very best we can to give them some type of security after what they've been through. Maybe I'm wrong, Alex, maybe I'm wrong. But I watched them, and there were a lot of heartbreak. There was a lot of heartbreak, a lot of sadness.
I don't want to point out the elephant in the room, but earlier tonight, my resignation was approved. So I don't want to speak into what in the future we can do, but I would just say then from a supervisory standpoint, I would agree. I would agree that I would hope that those efforts to ensure that security do go on and that there's some options. And I don't think that this is, I don't even want to make this a reflection of ESS either, because I think they would rightfully say this pandemic year is strange and whatnot, but I do think there is just a greater quality in having PSERs and having paid time off and having, I think there's just a greater level of kind of dignity and respect that the district can show, and you know, we weren't the only district that ever outsourced either, and some have more success. So I just think that, you know, we've had a good 2 years of reflection, and we're here now. And you know, this is really something that before I leave, I'd love to see cemented in. And as far as moving forward, I certainly would hope for the best and encourage the exact sentiments you had. And whether that's agreements or whatever it may be, but I just would be beyond my scope, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the kind of obvious here, because I don't want to, you know, sell you something to do for a couple years and then say bye.
Alex, I don't want them to be sacrificial lambs
Yeah.
again. I just don't think we should do that to people.
Dr. Fike, I think that they should immediately be put into some form of an agreement, similar to what the secretaries, I feel like they should be put into some form of an agreement, similar to what the secretaries have, so that they're guaranteed next year we're not going to change our minds again and you're going to be back at ESS.
Anything to protect them, Christy, anything to protect them.
If I were to just give a suggestion, and this is totally not a voting item at all, but running the numbers, a 3% raise is like, I think, $12,000 or something, which I know is nothing to sneeze at, but in the grand scheme of a $30-some million budget, so you could look at things. That's what we like mapped out when I was working through this with the IU, and different people have done it, were systems like that. I didn't put that in there because that wasn't something that I thought was in my perspective, but you know, on salaries that low with numbers that small, a 3% raise it's something that can be reasonably planned for. I'm not saying that it's nothing. It's obviously, you know, real money that comes from taxpayers, but it's something that can be reasonably planned for, I believe. All right, and thank everyone very much for kind words as well. Obviously, this is a strange thing, but thank you very much. So.
Thank you, Mr. Littlefield.
District phone system.
I'm asked John Pushkar to come forth. He has some information to provide the board.
If it's all right with you guys, I'd like to use the projector. You want to slide that projector over so you won't get the light.
I'll just move my chair. There's a light blinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming on. Okay, well, what really prompted all of this to begin with was the failing and ailing phone system that we have at the high school. As it stands right now, that system is 11 to 12 years old. No, I take that back. That system it was put in 98, 99, so it's a 20-year-old phone system. And at any given time, it kind of like just decides that it wants to start blinking the phones and beeping the phones, and you know, in people's offices when they're trying to do work, it's kind of disconcerting. But we started looking at replacing that phone system and started to find that a comparable replacement system would cost over $100,000, about $150,000 to replace that system, and that's just for the high school. So, you know, we did some looking at some other solutions. Our current situation, we have disparate phone systems across the district. Each building has a different phone system. So the system that's in the high school is a 20-year-old system, but the system down at the middle school SES complex was put in when that building was renovated. So, yeah, by today's technology standards, it's also antiquated. That could be the next one to go as well. Our existing systems are outdated. They provide really no features when it comes to the conveniences of technology that we have today, and they're prone to failure. Replacement of an existing system is very costly and only provides updated features to that particular building if you replace the system that's within the building. Failure of a system would disable communications in the building for an inordinate amount of time while a repair or replacement is being sought. Not all buildings even have internal phone systems. Our primary center doesn't even have phones in the rooms. There's no internal calling. Teachers have to go to a lounge to use an outside line if they don't have cell phones. They can't call into the rooms and say, I have a parent on the line, could you please pick up the phone? Some phones are serviced straight from the pole. The copper goes directly from the pole into the building and to the handset, which makes it very difficult for someone to move their office. It requires rewiring of the building. We recently had some administrators move from one room to another, and we had to crawl up into the ceiling, pull wires from one room down into another room, have maintenance help us out. And had to have those terminated and do a lot of internal rearranging just to make that work. Reconfiguring an existing phone system is difficult due to proprietary software and lack of service companies that even deal with our particular systems. The rationale behind a cloud-based system is what we're looking at. The phone service eliminates the need for internal or district-owned equipment for phone systems in each building, which saves upward of $100,000 or more in replacement costs for each building, should there be a failure of any of those existing equipment. Cloud-based phone systems provide a district-wide, unified, and uniform phone system to all the buildings, even those that never had one. Cloud-based phone system service will not become outdated or need repaired by district employees or outside companies. It's part of the service. Cloud-based phone service provides voice lines and phone system features as the service. So your provider or your vendor of your phone system actually becomes your phone company, so to speak. Now the benefits, all end users receive new equipment. So we get new handsets for teachers, administrators, people in offices. So anywhere that there's a phone, they would get a new handset or a new device. It wasn't shortly after they renovated the high school that we put, when we had classroom phones, teachers would call me and say, I can't hear. I pick up, my phone rang, but I can't hear anybody talking. They can hear me, but I would tell them, bang it on the wall. If you hit the phone hard enough, it would start to work. And that was shortly after it was installed. Yeah, I mean, the equipment was pretty shoddy back then. That would replace all of that. It would include all local and long-distance service, our monthly phone service, voicemail for each building. We currently only had voicemail in the high school, and that system died sometime a year and a half ago, so we don't even have voicemail in the high school anymore. You would have an auto attendant for each building, or a district level auto attendant. So when you called the district, you would get a recording that says if you'd reached the Southmoreland School District, if you want to talk to administration, please dial 0. If you want to talk to the high school, dial 1, so on and so forth. And then each building would have their own auto attendant. It also allows for easy intra and inter-building moves. So have administrators go from one building to another. Maybe they're not changing position, but they're just changing office location. They can take their phone number with them to another building. They take their handset with them, and it just rings. Maybe you need to work from home for a day. You can take your phone with you, and it appears as if you're in the office. It also provides voicemail to email. So if you received the voicemail, we could set it up so that you would have an email notification. You could listen to the voicemail right there through your email. It would also provide classroom phones in each of the classrooms at SPC. currently, teachers don't have classroom phones, so if there is a medical emergency or some other kind of emergency, they can't call the office unless, or call 911 unless they have their own personal cell phone. You know, they would have to call the office and say, you know, Billy's having a medical emergency, could you please call 911? This would allow a teacher to save that step and dial directly. Our current phone bills run us roughly $3,700 a month through our current provider. These are featureless Centrex phones. You're basically paying for each dial tone. That includes additional long distance costs. You know, like if you go over certain minutes, then you get charged by the minute. So our yearly approximate phone bill is $44,500 for the district. So we've set out and talked to 4 different vendors. The first one is our current phone company, Consolidated Communications from Gibsonia. Their proposal, and you know, if you've had a chance to look through the numbers, they took our current bills and looking at our current bills, they estimated around $37.10 a month, and what our current yearly is $44,500. Their proposal would include a monthly recurring cost of $5,168, which would be total up to a yearly $62,000, and a non-recurring site per site charge of $590. Okay, now that is if we would be leasing the equipment. In other words, all the handsets and all the phones and all the equipment. If you lease, they roll the cost of that equipment into your phone bill, so that explains the monthly recurring cost. If you choose to purchase the phones outright, it would be a monthly recurring phone bill of $2,517, annual $30,000, but you would purchase the equipment outright at $80,000, and that is a district-owned equipment. After the warranty period, you own it. If something goes wrong with it, you have to have it replaced. Now, they do offer a one-time rebate on the equipment of $9,600. So that provides a additional expense at $17,471 annually, plus the one-time $590. Armstrong Cable also provides cloud-based phone service. Again, they took our existing phone bills and figured out what our monthly cost, and based on that, they made their proposal. So their hosted monthly recurring cost with about $37,062.36, yearly $45,140. So that would just be a difference of $619 annually. So an additional cost to the district of $619 a year. Advent Communications Systems of Washington, PA. They based it off of our current annual or monthly and annual costs. Their proposal came in at $4,983 a month for a total annual cost of $59,796, with one-time professional services costs like training and installation of $12,000. So the difference there is $15,267 annually, plus the one-time $12,000. Final proposal was Full Service Network, and they're in Pittsburgh in the in one of the downtown buildings. They took our current bills. Now and I'm showing what our current bills are because when I gave them our bills, they kind of added them up a little differently, and they looked at the charges a little differently. So I'm basing it on the numbers that they reflected back. So their current total, what our monthly bills were perceived as being $3,652 per month. So based on that information, and our yearly on that monthly would yield $43,830 annually. Their proposal, their monthly recurring cost is $1,829.96 for a yearly cost of $21,952.32. Now that includes all the equipment, all the installation, and the phone services. So we're talking about replacing, in all of these proposals, we're talking about replacing all the existing equipment that's in our buildings, the phone systems, the central box that all the phone lines come in off the pole, and we use that to distribute throughout the building. So this number rings at this desk, and this number rings at that desk, and we can do extension calling. Those are built into each building. We're eliminating those because, let me remind you, like I said, the high school one is failing, and I cannot get parts for it. And we're also eliminating our phone bills, our phone company, and rolling it all into one. So we have all these features, new phone systems, automated attendant, voicemail, the ability to take your phone with you wherever you go. In this current proposal, if you have problems with your equipment, they have a number that you dial, *00. You get a human being. You tell them they don't even have to call anybody in the district. They don't have to call maintenance. Like a teacher or someone in the office doesn't have to call maintenance or a technology department. They call the provider themselves, and they will send out a new replacement phone within the next day. So they will handle all repairs and all replacements and everything like that. So as you can see with this final proposal, we're talking at a district savings of $21,878 annually. Any questions?
Mr. Pushkar, is there a potential for the district having to do some type of buyout from Consolidated Communications?
Currently, we are in our last year. Well, start in June, we will be entering into our last year. At the end of June, start of July, we'll be entering into the last year of contract with our current phone provider, Consolidated Communications. Okay, we had a 3-year contract with them starting July 1. We're entering into the 3rd year of that contract. We can tell them we're no longer interested in maintaining that contract if there is, any early termination penalties or whatever. From what I looked at the contract, even if we had an early termination fee, the savings would cover that within the year, with a year and a half. So long term, we would start seeing that savings each year after we've covered the cost of the early termination fee. But the short term immediate benefit would be we would be replacing the phone systems in each of the buildings that if they die tomorrow, I cannot get replacements for them.
And there is a real and current possibility of our phone system at the high school failing.
Absolutely. I ask people, they will just pull the wire out of their phone because it just beeps. So I have 2 witnesses.
I've actually been on phone calls with Mr. Kropchak and the line just goes dead.
Right.
So.
Are you recommending full service network then?
I'm recommending full service network just based on the proposals that were given.
Well, you told us in our budget meetings that you would save $20,000.
Right.
There it is.
Could you just provide us with, for next week, the buyout fee for the contract, just so we're aware of what it would be?
Yes, actually, their contract was in with what was on board docs with Consolidated Communications.
Is the buyout
and
ending it early in there?
It details, but I will, double, I'll boil that down to the exact numbers.
Okay, that would be great, thank you.
But I believe we were contracted with them at a minimum of $2,300 per month. So that's what your contracts, I mean, you can go over that.
Right.
You know, you can spend beyond that on your monthly, but the minimum was $2,300. And I believe, you know,
We'd have to cover that for the year.
yeah, at worst, you would pay that $2,300 times 12.
So this would also provide SPC,
Yeah.
the phone service that is, you know, not existing at this point in time,
Exactly.
which is a big benefit.
Yeah, I believe that building actually probably only has like 4 or 5 phone numbers. You know, 2 in the office, 1 at the principal's, 1 at the nurse, 1 in the guidance, maybe 1 in the cafeteria. So this would open up a lot of possibilities in that building.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
We would be leasing that equipment then, Mr. Pushkar?
Yeah, actually, it's part of your, it's rolled into your phone bill, yes. Yeah, so technically, we don't own the equipment, so if there's a problem with it, they replace it. And it also kind of future-proofs it so that, like, when that equipment becomes outdated or whatever, or, you know, they update their system and it necessitates the replacement of the handsets, they'll do it.
Thank you.
And I've also followed up with the reference, some of the references that they've provided. Ringgold School District, Laurel School District, talked to their technology coordinators. I talked to Mr. Robert Lee at Laurel and another gentleman at Ringgold, and they love it. You know, they're very, very, when I told the one technology coordinator why I was telling, before I could say anything more, he says, do it. It'll be the best thing that ever happened to you. He said, just get, you know, he said they're really easy to work with, they're very responsive, their customer support is top notch. So.
Does anybody have any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pushkar.
Sure, thank you.
Policy posting.
The board will be asked to authorize the administration to post for 30 days the following policies. Policy 103, discrimination, Title IX, sexual harassment affecting students. Policy 104, discrimination, Title IX, sexual harassment affecting staff. Policy 247, hazing. Policy 249, bullying, cyberbullying. And policy 832, educational equity. And these were policies that was strongly encouraged that we update through our audit.
Does anybody have any discussion?
Policy 830, I'm sorry, policy 832, the educational equity, that's the one that we asked for input from the community. And we did have Mrs. Arrear was speaking about it, and she had suggested, and I agree, that this might be one of those policies that we have a advisory group about, kind of like they're doing with the ESSERS money, and have representatives from all different areas that meets regularly to decide how we're going to, how the school can best enforce this policy and support the policy as it's going through. So if that's something that the board would want to discuss and hopefully create, I think it would be a good idea.
I think it's one that we have to continually look at and update anyway, so we might as well go through the process. And it was strongly encouraged even by PSBA to have an advisory committee involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? Board policies.
The board will be asked to approve policies that were posted for 30 days. These policies are as follows. 800, records management. 801, public records. 802, school organization. 803, school calendar. 804, school day. 805, emergency preparedness and response. 805.1, relations with law enforcement agencies. 805.2, school security personnel. 806, child abuse. 807, opening exercises, flag display. 808, food service. 810 transportation, 810.1 school bus drivers and school commercial motor vehicle drivers, 810.2 transportation, video, audio recording, 810.3 school vehicle drivers, 811 bonding, 812 property insurance, 813 other insurance, 814 copyright material, 815 acceptable use of computer network, digital technology and internet, 818 contracted services personnel, 819 suicide awareness, prevention and response, 822 automated external defibrillator AED, cardiopulmonary resuscitation CPR, 823 naloxone, 824 maintaining professional adult student boundaries, 827 conflict of interest, 828 fraud, and 830 breach of computerized personal information.
Any discussion? Posting of positions for ESY.
Board is asked to authorize the administration to post the positions for extended school year for the summer of 2021.
Is there any discussion?
Is that just for regular ed, or, I'm sorry, is that just for special ed?
It would be for, is it special ed? Then,
But no regular ed students are going to get that?
no.
We do this every summer.
Is there,
Yep.
We typically only have one classroom that we use ESY in that. And we sent the majority of our students for ESY supervision in every IP. We have to make that consideration. We sent the majority of our students, though, to Clellian Heights or Clairview. And we had reasonable anticipation that they would cap limits to only have ESY for students of their school typically and not our school. So in anticipation of that, we had set aside ESSER's funds to be able to open up more classrooms so that we could offer more comprehensive. And it actually was good because Clellian did cut off all students from outside districts coming in. So it's ESY, same as every year, but now we have more rooms than we previously had in previous years.
Alex, my concern was that there are people who have called me and said, we think we need to have remedial classes for our regular students after this academic year, after what happened this year, that we have the high failure rates and so forth. So it was a question that in addition, this would be a separate thing.
Yeah, this would be the IDEA compliance, ESY type,
Yeah,
that's just that, which would be every year.
And that's all this is, though. It's not.
Yeah, that's just as predominantly our students in the life skill support and autistic support classrooms, are not exclusively, but predominantly those students who would be in the Armstrong target group and would be serviced by this.
But there's been no
year.
discussion to have any other kind of classes.
There definitely has, and Mr. Clara, I know it's a bad time to call him because he's in the booth. I know the ESSERS 2 meeting has brought that information up. It just doesn't have anything to do with this necessarily.
No, it doesn't. Thank you.
what about mental health services for over the summer? Is that something that's being discussed too?
That is also part of the
Okay.
conversation with us.
Perfect.
Is there any other discussion about the ESY? Middle school head boys soccer coach.
At the recommendation of the athletic director, the board will be asked to hire Adam Butts as the new head coach for middle school boys soccer.
Is there any discussion? Job description for school security and police.
The board will be asked to approve the job descriptions for school security and safety and security coordinator, school police supervisor, school police officer, and school security guard.
Is there any discussion? School safety and security coordinator and school police supervisor.
The board will be asked to approve Greg Kiefer as the school safety security coordinator and school police supervisor as a 10-month employee at a salary of $54,000 per year.
Now, I think that in looking at this, we didn't realize that ESY would be for 3 weeks over the summer. So if he's a 10-month employee, I would suggest that we either take, this 54,000 was just figured out what his hourly rate is and what he works now. So it's not a rate, it's just what he makes now. So I would say that if that is the case for, I think they said 3 weeks, 4 days a week at 4 hours a day. So I would suggest either making that a supplemental for him for that hourly amount, or I'm not sure what's easier, adding it to the base salary since it wasn't intended, but I think we have to address that. I'm not sure the best way.
I have a question. We have a number of people who are our employees who are not included in any group.
Correct.
So this position that is listed here under number 4 is also listed in here. You saw that, Christy. It's the 4th block down, school police supervisor, and that one says school police supervisor. It's listed 2 different places, and I think the intent of this document that you graciously provided is critical. It's a real effort on our part to clean up some things that have gone uncleaned up for a long time. But that position is also listed in there as a position that does not fall under
Act 93.
Am I right?
Yes, and that was just done, I don't know who was allowed to be in Act 93, because the rules about that are it seems different depending on how they're supervising, how they're working, so yeah. That was a backup plan.
But all I'm saying, Christy, this is an excellent approach, and if you do this, you actually wipe this one out here. And now we have somebody else who's not in another group again.
Well, I think that...
I like this. I like this is what I'm saying.
And that's the intention, is that if he's named as this, he would have to go somewhere. So he'd have to either go in Act 93 or in this agreement that you're looking at. I think that we should have everyone covered under some type of an agreement.
Where would this one go then, this number 4? What would that be called?
I'm not sure what number... Do you mean...
It says school police supervisor paying the $54,000.
Oh.
What group does he belong to then?
That's what the board has to decide.
Okay, I'm bringing it up.
That's
why I'm bringing it up.
That's what would have to be decided.
But Christy, I don't think we should discard this. I think this is an excellent attempt to really organize our employment contracts, categories, whatever you want to call it, because we do have educational support professionals who are not included in anything.
Right.
And we could easily this position was also a part of this. And I just hate, if you do this, you're eliminating it in here. And now you have another person then who doesn't, I don't know, what they're going to I guess they can vote to put them in something else, I guess.
Correct, yeah. And that's the intention, was that I wanted to make sure he had a job title and an actual description, and then the board can say he's going in Act 93 or he's going in whatever new agreement we decide.
I'm agreeing with you, Christy. I think we need to look at this as well as this.
Yes.
I just, one could obviate the other is what I'm saying.
Yes.
And I think this is critical.
Well, it would cover security, it would cover nursing assistant, it would cover van drivers.
Crossing guards,
crossing guards, yes. Basically anybody who is not falling under an agreement or a contract.
You have them all listed. You have them all listed. And you have them in 2 tiers.
Correct. And that is not me saying this is what it's supposed to be done. That is just purely a template and a sample.
Christy,
the board can decide.
Christy, everybody has to start somewhere.
Well, right.
A blank piece of paper doesn't do it. This does it.
Well, that's just a prompting.
And that's what I am so pleased that you went to all this trouble to do. It's a wonderful thing. I just saw the duplication, Christy, and I just didn't want it to interfere with.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we could decide in approving this position that he would go in that agreement or in Act 93. He has to go in one or the other. He can't just be straggling out there.
That's,
Just like the paraprofessionals.
And see, we never talked about that. We've never talked about that, so.
I'm sorry?
We haven't yet talked about that.
No.
As a board, we have not yet talked about that.
No.
There's only ever been discussion about salary and stuff, but never belonging.
Right.
Belonging to something.
Yeah, so hopefully that'll help. Is there any other discussion?
As advertising for custodial supervisor?
The board will be asked to authorize the administration to advertise for the position of custodial supervisor.
Any discussion?
Isn't this what we've been doing? We've been doing this, haven't we?
We haven't advertised
No.
for this position.
We have not. This
It
is the
feels
first
like we
time.
have.
Okay.
I would say that anybody in the district who is interested in it should apply for it and interview. Because I know that there are a few people that might be interested in the district, so
we did.
I would definitely encourage them to try.
I would also.
Is there any other discussion? Citizens' comment?
So the person wanted to comment on what we just immediately discussed. Is that just for people here then? Because there's no 5-minute period. If I didn't get up, the meeting was adjourned, and that person had no opportunity. That's just the timeline that we're talking about here. So when we went into this policy, I let it go for a few months and because no one was listening. I said, we have this legal issue with the walk-on. You guys got it, right? And at the same time, you said, we're going to take 5 minutes at the end of the period, combine everything. If someone wants to comment on the period adds total, this is the opportunity. This is what people deserve. And this is why the virtual is not equivalent to be here. I wanted to be home. I don't want to be by this mess here.
So, Mr. Kiefer, I'm
Yeah.
going to make a suggestion to you because you were sitting here trying to figure out what can be done about this.
Right.
You have the opportunity prior to this meeting to call in. Sorry, I'm going to stop your time, so I'm not taking your time. You have the opportunity prior to this meeting to call in and say you want to speak at the end of the meeting.
Right.
You could call Mrs. Tarzan, or anybody in this community can call Mrs. Tarzan every single meeting and say you would like to speak at the end of the meeting.
That's right.
If you opt not to, then you just are not on the line to do so.
And we've had this discussion in public, and I can go back to the film here. You know, I can almost tell you the exact month that we had this. It could occur to me that when we're having this discussion here, and this is exactly what the point I made was, in the same words, I said, I cannot foresee that I'm going to log in every meeting to be able to comment because I don't know what's going to happen during the meeting. There has to be that 5-minute period to say, hey, I just heard something that was radically wrong. You voted on it. You need to hear from the public so you can not adjourn the meeting, but you can hold the meeting open, go back and correct that gross injustice. And that can happen. That happens here. When
Okay,
you
can I
guys,
interrupt you for 1 second? I
Yes.
actually agree with you.
Thank you.
I think that next week, we should vote to give 5 minutes at the end for anybody who's straggling, maybe YouTube froze or whatever, 5 minutes at the end for people to call in. I actually agree with you.
Right. Then my point's made. We'll see how it goes. There's a cost to denial also. You know, when you look at the real health of the students, and this isn't my only issue, but you guys are just doing nothing but relying on agencies above you like you were in church. The CDC, your Wolf and your agencies, you're taking these people as if there's no contrary or no contradicting opinion to that, and there isn't because you have not taken the dedication to learn issues from the opposite side. These policies that you are doing, shutting down the schools, masking children, vaccinating children, you think you're just sitting here. Well, that's what they did in Germany when they stuffed the trains. You guys are train stuffers. These call-in numbers, I want to go back to the call-in. I go to the, if I'm thinking, if I want to call in the school district, how do I figure that out? So I go and I read today, I might be wrong on this. I don't have the confidence on this, but I've had trouble finding out even the everyday number now from going to the school, going to the agenda, and pulling up the public comment period. I'm not so sure that that phone number's even there anymore. I'm just exhausted with this issue. But it shouldn't be a difficult thing or a questionable thing, and if everyone here knows, oh, it's right there, then you could say so right now, and I'll accept that. It should be on the screen for people watching at home in printed letters. You can call in. Make it easy for people. You guys have said, why is there such apathy in the community? This is just a systemic or chronic, long-term problem with the government, and you're no different. I'm going to do this one last time, and I'm not going to repeat this anymore. When I watched one member on this side of the room and one member in the center of the room sit for 6 months beside me in meetings in the back of the cafeteria, talking to each other side by side, teaching each other, learning, and then they decided to run and they got him on board. That's all I'm asking for with your comment board on the YouTube streaming. So if I'm at home and I want to talk to the person beside me, I can do that. That is a form of suppression if you don't do that. If you imagine if you never talked to that person during a meeting, where you would be today. You might neither be here. You have to put yourself in the underdog's shoes. One last point here. We're losing our economy is going on a free fall. Our freedom and our constitutional things, not only in the United States but around the world, is in a free fall. I don't have time to put examples up here, but if you don't see that and you aren't bringing that into the discourse at the local level, then what role are we playing in the global historic period that we are? We're in the most historic period in the history of mankind when you think of the potential of a new virus coming out that's man-made like the old that could wipe us out. And we're acting like we're just trying to keep bailing out the Titanic, and we're just denying this. You guys have got to, I'm not saying agree with me, you've got to express that on the local level. This is the community public forum. You say, well, take it to the county. I take it to the county. I take it to the state. I go to Washington. I watch people chain themselves to fences to make their point. You guys have made nothing on this area. The only thing you're doing is saying Wolf said, CDC said, NIH said, Fauci said. Do you know the garbage about Fauci? I do. I followed Fauci for 25 years. You haven't a clue on that. I could tell you the CDC stories for an hour. You'd be ashamed. And the WHO. These places are corrupt.
Your time is up, Mr. Keeper. Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. I had to sign up.